No, I'm alive. You can't hear me? Okay.
No, I hear you. You're fine.
Thank you. In accordance with the Executive Order N-29-20, the Planning Commission meeting will be held virtually. And you can go on the county website under Planning Commission and get instructions on how to join us either by phone or by computer. And with that, I will call the meeting to order and ask everybody to join me in a salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. A roll call, please.
Alan Bongio,
Present.
Thomas Mulder, Noah Levy,
Here.
Mike Newman,
Here.
Peggy O'Neill,
Here.
Brian Mitchell, and Melanie McCaver.
Here.
Thank you. Looks like we have 5 commissioners present, so we have a quorum. Welcome, everybody. So, Director, do we have any agenda modifications? Are you having some
technical difficulties? There are no modifications. There is one supplemental for item number 2 on the consent calendar, which is organic Humboldt. There was an email sent out earlier today coming in from Epic, and that was requesting continuance of the items under continued public hearings, item number 3 and 4.
But that was from Epic asking that, not the app.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. So, I don't know if you.
Hey, Alan.
But there
Alan.
was. Yes, go ahead.
Could you tell me what John just said about the public comment or the
Yes.
public, what he was just asking about from Epic?
Yes, he was saying on the item that was continued, which is
Is that G1? G1?
No, it's F3 and 4. Those 2 items, Epic sent a letter that they were requesting whole, but that not the applicant. Epic sent us.
Okay.
That was one. That and there was one supplemental on.
There's a big echo in there.
Yeah. Like they're having
The problem with the sound tonight.
I don't
Turn
hear
my-
in case
What was that?
I don't hear an echo in case that makes a difference.
Maybe it's just you, Mike. Just kidding.
I was hearing it too.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I'll turn my,
It was just when the Director Ford's mic was on and you were speaking, Alan. That's when we heard it, I think.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're still kind of working on his stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Commissioner Bongio, we have Thomas Mulder in the attendees list right now.
okay. Thank you for letting us know that. Josh will move him over when he gets done helping the director. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So are you good now over there? They're close, they say. I'll take public comment while they're still working on things. So at this time, I'll open up public comment. This is for any item that is not on tonight's agenda. So to my participants. Attendees. And I recognize that first number. Go ahead, Kent. Are you there? 7429?
Good evening. Hi, this is Roby Tenorio in Southern Humboldt. I'm calling again with my concerns about the drought and climate change. Conditions have really changed drastically since the passage of the cannabis ordinances, and I really feel that your commission would do best to be very responsible at this time to acknowledge the change and the changing conditions and the crisis that we knowingly face, and not continue to permit these projects that are dependent on unstored water from wells and unattended generators, which pose a very potential fire danger. So there's some also very serious unresolved issues regarding PG&E's ability to provide power. And so I'm concerned that generators will be used until that power appears. I know that you have a backlog and staff is rushing, and so are you, to get the projects through. And many of them have, in the projects, they state that they're not completed, that there's still conditions that haven't been met. But the permits are being given away anyway, and so then we're going to be left later with staff who's already overworked, having to handle the follow-up to confirm that indeed these conditions have been improved or implemented. So tonight on your agenda, on your consent agenda, you have 6 projects, cannabis projects, and 6 are on wells and 4 use generators, and 2 PG&Es in question. So I just think that our community is facing some possible serious impacts from the cumulative effects of this water and generator issues. So please consider it differently when you're thinking about the climate conditions we're facing right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Roby. Next caller is 7454.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I couldn't hear John Ford at all at the start of the meeting, so I really don't know what he said. And of course, the public didn't hear him either.
I think I explained the 2 things that he said, but if there was a letter asking for a continuance on items F, 3, and 4, and it was from Epic, and that was one of the items, and there was another supplemental was on one of the other projects. I can't remember which number, but that was the only 2 things that he had a comment about.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now, Alan?
Yes, loud and clear.
So I guess item 3 and 4 will be pulled. I mean, I'll pull it just to see what Epic wants to say about a project and why they're making the comment. I'm hoping that in your staff report, you'll do that. Anyway, you're kind of on thin ice, and you always have been. Your 1.0s were done on a mitigated negative deck. And I can pretty well guarantee you that if these projects were out there with the impacts that you have, that you're doing under this mitigated negative deck, if they were part of a logging permit, they would be sued up one side and down the other. The problem with a mitigated negative deck are many. You'll see a tendency of projects such as Nordic Aqua Farms. They got the message. They're doing an EIR. Something of this size should have been done on an EIR, not a question at all. So working on this false basis and the interpretations that have been made, such as here would be an example. As far as I can tell, somebody could have had a guerrilla grow. And I thought CEQA, in other words, if you did not grow during, what was it, the year of 16, you were not an existing grow. But my understanding is they're letting these guerrilla grows go back. So this guerrilla grow, I'm familiar with, like basically wasn't being used. It was decommissioned, was hard to even tell what it was. And yet that was being used as a basis. Its water usage was 0. It had no generators. It had no grading. It had no hoop houses. And yet you folks seem to be using that as a basis to permit the exact project I talked about. And that is, you can't do that, plain and simply. So I did want to do lastly here, and it's kind of hard, kind of bad when you have to play hardball. You as a planning commission are now being put on legal notice. Should your actions that you've taken regarding generators and any future actions or any of these other things cause, let's say, to be a devastating fire from one of those things, and there's loss of life or property, now that you're put on notice, you may be held personally liable for both civil and criminal actions. So you can talk to your attorneys. I've done this before regarding the Blue Lake. We have a dike down there. If it fails, the supervisors are going to be on the hook for this. I don't take that lightly when someone has to go to this kind of a extent to let you know what you're doing out there and what its potential consequences probably will be. Now, we'll find out, won't we? So I hate to have to start off so negative. Hopefully we'll do some good things tonight, and I look forward to participating in the rest of the meeting. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on public comment? Give me a second. Put your hand up if you want to speak. Okay, there. Vanessa Villari.
Can you hear
There you
me?
go.
Yeah, I'm speaking for CTA Humboldt, Vanessa, the owner of the company. I'm the head environmental scientist for the items for 3 and 4. And I just wanted to talk a second to Epic's concerns. I've actually worked.
No, this isn't the time for that, sir. This is, you'll get your chance when we have those issues come up. They're on continued.
Okay. Well, then just for the record, I am the environmental scientist for this project, and I'll speak to their concerns.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else that would like to speak in public comment on anything that is not on the agenda tonight?
Chair Bongio, I notice Stephen Liu, who happens to be in the attendees, has his hands up, but I think he maybe is an attendee who wants to speak. He's actually on the panel.
Okay, I'll let him speak. He's up on panelists. That's where I'm seeing him, but okay. So Stephen Liu, if you're available, go ahead and speak now if you have something.
Hello, thank you. This is just a question on the scheduling of the agenda and how this will be processed. I represent one of the clients that was or applicants that was continued at the last hearing and was continued previous to that. And they're number 1 on the agenda on the list of continued hearings. And we would like to request that the continued hearings from the previous meeting be heard before any projects that might be pulled off consent at this hearing, if that is possible, because we do see that these projects are getting added to consent, at each hearing, and due to the number of projects being pulled off consent, we are concerned that our project may be delayed 1, 2, or potentially indefinitely if it continues to be put on the bottom of the list for the objects on consent.
Yes, the director is saying that we will do that item before we go on. We will go through the consent calendar and see what gets pulled or not, but then we will do the continued ones before we go into each of those individual consent items. All right. Thank you. And I'm going to go back to the attendees just to make sure. Anybody else that wants to speak on public comment before we get. All right. I'm going to close public comment then. And we're going to now go through the consent agenda like we do each meeting. And if anybody wants to have an item pulled, please raise your hand and we'll pull that item. And if not, it will stay on consent. So the first item is Green Bridge Holdings Incorporated in the Bridgeville area. Is there anybody who wishes to have this pulled on the commission or in the public? Seeing the public, this one will be pulled. Item number 2, Organic Humboldt Incorporated in the Bryceland area. Does anybody wish to have this item pulled? Seeing none, I will leave this. Oh, now I do have, that's the same number. So, okay. Hold. All right, item number 3, Humfire LLC, Garberville area. Does anybody wish to have this item pulled?
Is that continued to
I'm sorry.
6/17?
Yep, you're right.
This is Mario Calson from Division of Environmental Health. I'm requesting that item is pulled.
Yes, and it is. It's being continued. Do we have a date on that, Director?
6/17?
Yeah. So we'll come back and take care of that housekeeping after we go through the rest of the.
Excuse me, Chair, if you just leave it on consent, the recommendation is
Will
continued.
be fine. Okay. Thank you. Number 4 is the Henry Avalar in the McKinleyville area. Everybody okay with this one? Okay. Okay. Item number 6 is Christopher Cameron in the Salmon Creek area.
This is David Mack with Harrison Associates. I don't want to pull it. I just want to clarify that the agenda says continue to a date uncertain.
Yes.
It's actually being continued to June 17th.
June 17th, so 6/17. All right, thank you.
If I could, unfortunately, I agree with what Mr. Mack said, but since it's on the agenda, continue to a date uncertain, we're going to have to renotice it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to jump in and clarify.
It's to a date uncertain.
I just want to clarify for anybody that's listening, a new notice for June 17th has been sent out, but on this agenda, we do need to continue it to a date uncertain.
Okay. All right, thank you for the clarification there. Item number 6, Scrap Acres LLC's Redwood Valley area. Anybody cares? That one's full. 7-1, okay. Item number 7, John Parample, Redwood Valley area.
This is Mario Calson from Environmental Health. I'm requesting that that's pulled.
All right. Item number 8, conformance review for the Willow Creek CSD. Anybody wish to have this one pulled? I see 7108 has their hand up, but it was up on the last one. Did that? Okay, thank you. I just wasn't sure if it got pulled down between. So does anybody have any problem with this one? It appears that this is okay. That is the last that is on our get back so we can go through each one, make sure we got them right. So on our consent, the items that will be on the consent tonight will be item number 3, which is a continuance, item number 4, item number 5, which is also a continuance, and item number 8. So,
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of items 3, 4, 5, and 8 on the consent calendar, with 2 of those being continuances.
all right, thank you. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Affirmative.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell, Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Motion carries. So thank you, everyone. And so now we will go on to item number F, which is continued public hearings. And then we will come back to each of the items that were pulled after that. So the first item is Seeking Roots LLC in the Garville area. Let me take a staff report.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Max Hilken, and I'm presenting the Seeking Roots LLC conditional use permit and special permit project. This project was continued from the May 2021 Planning Commission hearing. So the proposed project is a conditional use permit for 30,400 square feet of outdoor cultivation grown using light deprivation techniques in 3 discrete cultivation areas. The special permit is for use of a registered point of diversion within the streamside management area. 2 harvests are anticipated annually during the growing season, which extends from April to October. Drying, harvest, storage, and processing will occur on site in a 2,600 square foot existing barn. Power is sourced from 1 generator and a solar array. The subject parcel is accessed off of Dyerville Loop Road. Dyerville Loop Road is a county maintained road that is approved for use by the Department of Public Works for commercial cannabis operations. The project site has a 250-foot permanent access road directly offside county maintained road. And the project is already conditioned to include Public Works requests to improve visibility and driveway apron. This slide is showing an aerial image of the 3 discrete cultivation areas on the subject parcel, with cultivation area A on the right, containing 13,000 square feet of cultivation within 8 greenhouses. Cultivation area B in the center there, 13,900 square feet of cultivation within 6 hoop houses, and cultivation area C all the way to the left, containing just 1,554 square feet within 6 greenhouse structures as well. This plot plan shows 1 class 2 unnamed water course, which flows from the east to west through the central portion of the parcel. It includes the associated 100-foot stream management area buffers. All cultivation and associated structures are outside the streamside management area buffers, as shown here. Regarding resource utilization, water is sourced from a permitted groundwater well and a point of diversion. 324,900 gallons of existing water storage is on site. 235,000 gallons, or approximately 3.8 gallons per square feet of annual water is the estimated use for this site. There's no northern spotted owl activity centers within 2 miles. And even with that, noise and light attenuation measures are still included as conditions of approval to this project. This project has received public comments, which are included in attachment 5 of the staff report. The comments are largely regarding reorganization into greenhouses, clarification on the water use, and the use of generators for the project. The reorganization from full sun outdoor to greenhouses, specifically, prior to January 1st, 2016, there was 9,600 square feet of greenhouses located on the site, and the balance of the cultivation area was full sun outdoor. Since January 1st, 2016, the full sun outdoor was reorganized into greenhouses. Planning staff is supportive of the reorganization into greenhouses, as the water demand is the same or lower, even with the 2 cultivation cycles proposed, as the total number of growing days does not increase. Additionally, because the plants are grown in the greenhouses, they're typically smaller than full sun outdoor plants and less water is required. To clarify on the water source, the applicant relies on groundwater well and a point of diversion to supply water for irrigation. A second point of diversion supplies water for domestic use. According to correspondence received from the applicant on May 7th, 2021, the groundwater well is productive. Both points of diversion are permitted by the State Water Resource Control Board and the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Proposed water use again is only 235,000 gallons. Water storage total is 324,900 gallons, which meets the forbearance requirements required by the State Water Resources Control Board, Cannabis Cultivation Policy, and the final streambed alteration agreement issued by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. These items are included in attachment 3. Even without the use of groundwater well, water demand for the entire season is met using water storage, and the applicant does not need to divert from the point of diversion during the cultivation season when water courses have lower flows. Lastly, addressing the concerns for power source. The power for the proposed project is provided by a 35 kilowatt generator and a solar array. As the application was submitted and is being processed pursuant to the Commercial Medical Marijuana Land Use Ordinance, additional restrictions on the generator use are not required at this time. The Planning Commission was provided a supplemental on May 20, 2021 describing generator use, which was prepared by the applicant. And according to the supplemental, the proposed cultivation operation will utilize solar arrays to power string lights in the greenhouse structures, lighting in the barns as well. The generator will be limited to use for drying structures and emergency backup power. Specifically, drying occurs in August and September, and these are the peak utilization times for generator. Outside of that, the generator would only be used for emergency power requirements. These generators are further mitigated as they are conditioned to have a enclosure placed around them to modify any noise that would be generated from this power source. And additionally, all emergency generator usage can be limited to daylight hours, except for 2 weeks in the year related to drying activities. The Planning Department recommends the Commission find the addendum to the MND has been considered, make all the required findings based on evidence in the staff report, and approve the Seeking Roots project subject to the recommended conditions. This concludes my presentation. Planning staff are available to answer any questions, and the applicant and agent are also in attendance at tonight's hearing, should they be required. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff and the commission? Go ahead, Thomas.
So I just heard in the presentation something about string lights being used, and I did hear that 9,600 square feet of greenhouses weren't existent before 2016, but the project description is 30,400 square feet of outdoor. So under county code, outdoor, if this is noticed properly, if I remember county rules, that would have no string lights allowed. So I just want to get a clarification on that first.
Hi, this is Megan, Lake Associates. The permit does not authorize any use of artificial lighting for cultivation.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then my last question, I mean, I've emailed and I still 3.8 gallons per square foot. I still can't wrap my head around that. So I'm hoping the applicant can provide some documentation for water use being so low.
Thank you, Thomas. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, I will now open this up for public comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this project? 7454. Go ahead.
Just for total transparency, I did not pull a single item off of consent tonight. Police Navidad. Didn't have to, did I? You know, this is kind of an example of what I think. This is a 1.0 is my understanding. And I don't know whether you assessed with your mitigated negative deck the effect on the environment of, in this case, converting half the project over from full sun, which shouldn't require maybe grow bags, maybe doesn't require any kind of plastic, no kind of tubing, probably not the same kind of grading you'd have for a greenhouse. Don't know, but was that assessed, and was that assessed on a cumulative basis on all your 1.0 permits in your project? And I just see this continually happening where you're taking one use, calling it a 1.0, but then you're allowed to change your technology, change the potential effect on the environment, which making plastic has a hell of a negative effect. I guess you guys never got that memo on that particular thing. Maybe you missed it or lost it or whatever. But these are the concerns the public has out there. It's kind of a bait and switch when you allow different grows, same as going from a guerrilla grow with very little effect on the environment. And then you say it's much preferable to have all this plastic out there. So I thought we didn't want plastic, but I guess I'm wrong, not in Humboldt County at least. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this project.
Thank you, Kent. Next caller, Stephen Liu.
This is Stephen Liu. I'm one of the agents for the applicant, and I wanted to address some of the concerns that have been voiced. Commissioner Mulder brought up a question about the 3.8 or 2.8 gallons per square foot. I think that's just a math error. Their annual usage estimate at 235,000 gallons over 30,400 square feet, around 7.5 gallons per square foot. And the actual in-place water storage that has been developed and is there today is about 325,000 gallons. So it's a little over 10 gallons a square foot. So I believe there should be sufficient water storage. The operator is converting from hand watering to an efficient drip irrigation system, and that's in place right now also. So the usage should be reduced. I understand the concern that's been voiced as far as converting from full sun outdoor cultivation into light deprivation or greenhouse cultivation. It stands to reason that you would expect more water usage and more environmental impact, but it actually reduces the impact. Instead of growing giant plants in pots that are in potting soil, it's where you have a tremendous amount of evaporative loss and not much water retention. By switching to a greenhouse cultivation, you have smaller plants, less evapotranspiration from the plants as they grow. You have the ability to develop raised beds that reduce evaporative loss as well. And overall, the growing season is pretty much the same. You just end up using a lot less water with this outdoor cultivation method. Because the plants themselves are, with an outdoor cultivation, there's no supplemental lighting. There really is not a change in the growing window or the growing season. It's just more efficient of an operation. And I'm available to address any further questions if they come up.
Thanks, Steve. Anybody else that would like to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment and bring it back to the commission. And let's see, Thomas has his hand up, so.
So are we, I don't want to be out of my lane here, Chair Bongio, but the plastic waste, I want to make a brief response to that public comment.
Go ahead.
Plastic waste that also is not assessed is also metric tags that are required by the state of California. In 2019, me personally, I had 40 kilograms of waste we had to shred. That's just waste for tags. So you can think about that. And the comments from Stephen Liu are pretty accurate for me as a cultivator. I've seen full-term plants consume as much as like 15 gallons a square foot when they're in smart pots because they use a lot of water and you lose a lot of loss. And I've seen light depth, in the 7 to 12 gallons a square foot. So the statements about, from my knowledge, the statements about water use that were made by Steve are correct, that you actually may use less water, and that's it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Anybody? Go ahead, Noah.
I just wanted to say that I found Stephen Liu's comment really helpful as well, and clarifying of some concerns around water use and so forth. So, but I don't have any other questions.
All right. Does anybody want to make a motion on this one? Keep things moving along. We have a lot of projects tonight. So.
Sure. I would move approval of item F1, Seeking Roots LLC. Just make it the short form.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? All right. Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous. All right. Well, let's move to number 2, which is Humboldt Hybrids LLC in the Bridgeville area. Take a staff report on this one.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Byron Turner with Laco Associates. I'll be presenting this item this evening. Again, this is Humboldt Hybrids LLC. This use permit seeks to authorize an existing 17,880 square foot outdoor grow site. There's multiple gardens, 4,050 square feet in full sun, with 13,830 in hoop houses using light deprivation. There'll be 2 employees on site. Processing occurs off-site. There is power provided by a generator. Ancillary propagation occurs in 2 greenhouses, and drying occurs on-site within an existing 800 square foot structure. The site is accessed from Highway 36 to Larrabee Valley Road to Coyote Ridge Road. Road evaluation was done, and it was concluded that it had the ability to accommodate the proposed project. This is the site plan. As you can see, 3 distinct grow areas. On a closer view showing the build out. There are no mapped areas for habitat with any threatened or endangered species of concern within the cultivation area. It's 3/4 of a mile from a NSO activity center. Noise and light attenuation measures, as required with all projects, are required as a condition of approval. The water source is a groundwater well with 320,000 gallons annual anticipated usage. Existing storage at 52,000 gallons. There is a pond on site. The pond is not permitted for irrigation. Only the storage in the existing tanks, drip irrigation, will be used. Staff determined that the on-site well is not hydraulically connected based on distance from the nearest water course and the use of the construction techniques. It is staff's recommendation that the Finding project consistent with the mitigated negative declaration that was adopted for the CMMLO per 15164C of CEQA guidelines, make all the required findings for approval of the conditional use permit, and adopt the resolution approving the conditional use permit subject to the conditions of approval. Available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Okay, seeing nothing from the commission, I will go over to attendees. We will open it up for public comment now. And first one is Kendra Myers.
Hi, this is Kendra Myers from Mother Earth Engineering. I'm the agent for this project, and I have any questions.
Okay, usually we try to get the agents or the applicant to wait till the end. So we might come back to you, okay?
Understood.
So the next caller is 7454.
For starters, I have a little greenhouse which I grow vegetables in, and I do concur the water usage may be less. On the other hand, the worst lie is a lie by omission. Nobody's addressing the potential toxics involved in the plastics, and that's my concern. You know, on all these projects that use that. Of course, we're within what 3/4 of a mile of a spotted owl. That's pretty close. Pretty good chance before this site was originally put in there that would have been part of its habitat or would have been its main home. That's my concern again, where they've been driven out, and we're just rubber stamping the fact that it's more important to have these things out in the middle of Mother Nature for some reason than to having done the right thing, like I asked the supervisor to do back before 1.0, do the right thing. And I love the RRR. You know, if these things were out of these areas, that would be great. That's not what happened, is it? So that's quite unfortunate. So I continually see these projects with half full sun and half not. And I can't tell from what's going on if it actually was this during the time when the quote unquote existing was happened, or in that last project that we see, they basically were changing this over for some and allowed to do for some reason. I cannot see any legal basis for making those changes while working under a mitigated negative deck. So that's a continual concern out there. And until somebody explains to me why plastic is so much better, saving a little water is so much better to have stuff that is either if it's fireproof, then it's less able to be assimilated or recycled or whatever. And I also have concerns that I think all these projects that have this plastic should be 100% bonded for removal and disposal of that plastic before they're allowed to erect or continue to have use of these extremely toxic tools, which I feel don't belong out there at all. That's my opinion. Thank you for my opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next caller is public 5288. Unmute yourself. *6. 5288. Are you there? Okay. We'll move on to the next. Oh, man, just went down. Okay. Public 7108.
Hi, I'm have concerns about the water usage of 320,000 gallons with only 52,000 gallons of water storage, and the permitted groundwater well, and I'm wondering who certified that it's not hydrologically connected to any surface waters, and the 2 generators that are going to be used, what kind of protections are there for fire besides fire extinguishers, and will they be left unattended, be running when nobody's there? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, caller. Maybe the applicant or the agent could come on now and could touch on some of those points that were brought up. Go ahead, Kendra.
Hi. Yeah, so the first point about the water usage, I just want to say that that 350,000 gallons was an estimate, and the actual water usage last year, according to their meters, was 283,000. So they're using a little bit less. It comes out to about 13 gallons per square foot. And the groundwater well, I see that the county made a determination. We've also received a determination from the State Water Board in the last week or so that says that they also concur with that. And I have an email here that I can read if anybody's interested in the exact wording of that.
I kind of would be. Thank you.
Okay, let me get there.
If it's convenient.
Yeah, no, it's right here. Okay, so we sent them the well log, and they sent back, thank you for the information. This is from Christopher Bimos at the Cannabis Enforcement section of the State Water Resources Control Board. Thank you for the information. You no longer need to worry about the NOV we sent you. All we need now is before and after pictures of the removal of the on-stream pond, and we will be out of your hair. Once the remediation is complete, you can just send the pictures via email. He asked when it would be taking place, reminded us that any surface water diversions require a water right. They decide to divert at any point in the future, they must first obtain a proper water right, and they do not. They plan to use their groundwater well, which is producing as they expected. Did that answer all the questions?
The other one was generators. The other question was on it.
The applicant plans to phase over to PG&E within the next 2 or 3 years. That's the next project that they're going to take on. The PG&E lines extend to the adjacent parcel, so not too much of a project to bring them one more parcel over. And they understand that generators will be phased out within 4 years anyway, so that is on their agenda to initiate that upgrade and get a PG&E drop.
Does anybody have any questions for Kendra while she's still with us? Oh, I'm sorry, Thomas. I didn't have it on the cameras. Go ahead, Thomas.
So I actually shared generator questions as well because I read through this a couple of times. This is outdoor per county guidelines, yet there's 2 60 kW generators. So I'm confused why such a large generator, 2 large generators would be needed to provide nursery propagation for this size of cultivation when there's no mixed light. So I don't know, I'm kind of confused there. And then the other part, I don't know if this is correct. If the on-stream, I just heard the on-stream pond is being removed. So is this description, the executive summary description, inaccurate? Because it counted that 300,000 gallons of storage, even though it couldn't be used for cultivation. So I don't know if that's staff or Kendra on that one. But the generator is for, Kendra was her name, correct?
Yes.
Kendra, yeah.
Okay, so the generators, I do not believe that those both of them are in use. They were there when the property was purchased. They were a part of the purchase, and they also serve the residents. At the beginning, this project actually had mixed light, and early on we negotiated to go to outdoor because that was requested by the county and the applicants agreed. So they did have mixed light. They do not now. As far as, what was the next question? Oh, the 350,000 gallons is the estimated usage. They have 50,000 gallons of storage. They do not use the pond for anything but recreation. The pond is being removed because it was determined to be on stream. We actually drained it last year and it's going to be removed. It's going to be completely decommissioned and restored to the stream this year. It is not going to go through another winter with the impoundment. So we're developing the stream restoration plan, and we're seeking an emergency permit or a fast track permit from the water board for a 401 Clean Water Act so that can be done this year. And that will comply with the lake and stream bed agreement.
All right. Peggy, are you?
Yes.
That,
yes.
okay.
when someone says, well, they're going to convert over to PG&E in the next couple of years, I think there needs to be a deadline in their permit, because if you started right now applying to PG&E to have the power extended to your operations, it would probably be several years before they ever got around to it, from my own experience. And so I think that these promises to remove ponds and install power should have written language put into the permit with deadlines, because if not, I don't really see the motivation. It's going to cost quite a bit to bring the power. You said it was the next property over, but I don't know how far that is. But you are required to make a deposit and start the design. And if you haven't done that, you're not going to have power in a couple of years.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right. Thank you, Kendra. So I'll bring this back to the commission. Where do we want to go with this one? Any questions for staff or anything? Thomas?
My question to staff is that 300,000 gallon pond that's described in the executive summary as storage that's being used for, I can't find the wording, something about fire. Is this project description accurate with that, the fact that that's going to be removed?
I'll take a shot at that. What the project description did was identify what was on the site. It may or may not have been known to staff that that pond was being removed, but the project description does clearly articulate that the pond is not associated with the cannabis permit. So whether that language is in the project description or not does not affect what is being considered part of the cannabis permit.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Anybody want to make a motion on this one?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Melanie.
It's regarding the motion. I was wondering how the rest of the commission felt about attaching some deadlines.
Good idea.
Yeah, I'm open to that. At least, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was thinking something like, because we don't have any real control over the PG&E process itself, we could ask that the applicant start the process within 6 months.
Mm-hmm. How are we going to follow that up is the question. The staff will follow that up.
I agree with that, because, you know, starting the process means you make a deposit, so they'll do the engineering and design, and then you come up with the money for them to do the construction. Then they put you on a schedule that just keeps moving and moving and moving. And so, you know, if you don't start right now, you're not going to have, if you start in 2 years, you're not going to have power for 5 years.
I think starting in 6 months sounds pretty reasonable.
Thomas, I see you have your hand back up. Maybe it never went down. I don't know.
No, I put it back up because the bigger generator, I'm trying to wrap my head around that, and I'm scanning through the conditions of approval again, and I'm not seeing one that's requiring registration with the Air Quality Management District, because anything over a 45 kW needs to be registered. So you would be I might actually support something with the generator that's underneath, like some sort of condition with the generator that is below that, or that they need to have it registered with Air Quality Management. Just because it seems like too big of a generator. Even the powerhouse, I haven't seen much more than like a 30 kW in a house. So I'm trying to figure it out.
Thank you, Thomas. Sorry, may I jump in?
Go ahead.
Just on that point, yeah, I wasn't quite sure what to do with the information, but it seemed that the agent was suggesting that, or maybe I didn't understand, but that they were not actually in use for this project, that they were on the property because they were just part of what was purchased with the property, but not. I mean, I guess I do also want a little bit more clarification on the generators, or how we can condition something smaller than those.
So could I offer a condition that something to the effect that prior to or within 60 days of project approval, the applicant shall submit a plan to Planning and Building Department showing the amount of power demand for the cultivation, and the cultivation is outdoor with no lighting. The primary use of power here, this is an aside, but the primary use of power would be for the propagation area, the well, and any processing that they do on site. And so the basic idea of the condition would be that they submit a power demand budget and then demonstrate that they're going to utilize a generator that's in line with their power demand.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that seems really on point with our concerns. Thank you.
Thomas, you have your hand back up.
Yeah, the other reason I'd agree with that is generators over 45 kW, they tend to wet stack quite a bit, and those that are concerned about the environment, if it's a low load, you're just going to have a bunch of soot build up. And then the other thing is too, a generator, what I would believe would be the electrical needs, you're going to burn maybe 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons an hour. Versus if that 60 kW is running, even with a similar load, you're probably closer to 3 gallons an hour. So what type of use do you want to permit is kind of where I'm going with my question to the commission.
So are you saying, Thomas, that when they do their evaluation of what their energy needs are and say they don't need a 60 kW generator, that they would have to downsize to whatever size that is determined?
I mean, if the commission is trying to err on the side of caution as far as environment as much as possible, I can't wrap my head around the need for a 60 kW. And I think it would be important to have a condition that if the generator is of the size that needs to be registered with Air Quality Management District, that probably should be added in there as well.
Okay. I see Kendra has her hand back up. I normally don't do this, but the applicant or their consultant, Kendra, has put her hand back up. So I'm gonna let her speak to that issue, those issues.
Okay, thank you. First of all, the applicant regrets that he could not get into the Zoom, but I have him on text here. 1 generator in use during the dry process. Generator is efficient and only uses what power is required. Dehums, air fans, and propagation for the greenhouse, for the propagation lights. So I mean, I think that we can comply with what you're suggesting. I would not like to see the applicant have to, sell his generator and get a different one, but we can certainly register with the Air Quality Control Board, and we can provide that power demand budget within 60 days for sure.
Any other questions for Kendra while we have her here? Because this is the last time I'm going to bring her back. Go ahead.
So there was also the suggestion that the applicant start their PG&E application earlier than a couple of years. Is that something that is negotiable?
that is absolutely doable. We can start that nearly right away. We were planning to.
Then I think that should be a condition of the permit and not just a honor system.
Okay. Thomas, I see your hands back up.
I apologize to ask so many questions. For state licensing, and this is for the applicant, if their primary power source is over 50 horsepower, I thought that those had to be tier 4. Is the generator that's currently on site a tier 4 motor?
I don't know. I can find out and follow up with the planning department if that's appropriate.
I would think when they get their certification from CARB, the air quality people, that they will confirm what they have and tell them whether they have to get a newer tier level than that. So if we put the stipulation that they have to get that certificate from California Air Resources Board, then they'll take care of policing that side of it.
Very good point.
All right. Melanie, I see your hands up.
Oh, I was just wondering if we're ready to make a motion.
I think that'd be a great idea. Why don't you do that?
All right, I'll motion to approve Humboldt Hybrids LLC record number PLN 11991, parcel number APN 210250011 in the Bridgeville area. Conditional use permit for continued cultivation of the 17,880 square feet of existing outdoor cannabis, with the following conditions: that within 6 months, the applicant start the process to move to PG&E. And the second one being that within 60 days, they make an arrangement with the planning department to evaluate their generator usage and needs, and move to power usage that is within 10% of their minimum. And I think that was it, wasn't it?
Get certified by CARB, California.
Oh, yes. And thank you very much, Ellen. And register with their generator with the Air Quality Control Board.
I think that covers things.
I don't think we need to include the pond because it's already being decommissioned and it's outside of the cannabis project.
So we have a motion with those amendments to it. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion on that motion in a second? Seeing no hands, I will ask for a roll call vote, please. Yes.
Yes. He's very quiet, but I barely heard my name. Yes, I vote.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. All right. So that brings us on to item number 3, which was not pulled. There was a request to have it pulled by Epic, but it was not pulled from our agenda tonight. You want to say anything about that? Or?
Yeah, just to clarify, the request was because there has not been a response from CDFW to the information that has been provided, that CDFW be given an opportunity to respond before the Planning Commission acts on this. And I think we've got some feedback on that, but that's the request from Epic.
Okay, so you have some feedback from CDFW?
We have no feedback from CDFW, but we have been trying to work with CDFW on that.
Okay. All right. So the first one is John Mahoney in the Harris area, and we'll take a staff report on this, please.
If I may just make a question at the outset, Alan.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've said this before in a previous context, but I'm a little confused by the relation between these two projects, or I find it a little confusing to have them presented separately. So if the staff report could try to refer to both as well as possible, even if it's explicitly about the first one only, that would be my request. Thank you.
I can do that for you, Commissioner Levy. So the two projects before you tonight, both John Mahoney projects, they are somewhat adjacent. They do have a parcel that separates the two. And the two parcels that are projects you'll be hearing of tonight, they have different water uses, different water sources, different water storage. So they really are two separate projects. But they do share a biological assessment, which is a huge part of what you'll be hearing of tonight. So the first we're going to talk about is application number 15244, parcel ending in 010. The two parcels on tonight's agenda are highlighted in blue. The first we're going to talk about is the one that is the westernmost parcel, both of which exist east of the 101 near the Mendocino and Trinity County lines. They are both legal parcels. They are zoned agriculture exclusive, and they are residential agriculture. So the proposed project is for 20,000. It's a special permit. This should have been heard by the zoning administrator who elected not to hear it. That's why it is before you tonight. It is a special permit for 20,000 square feet of new commercial cannabis cultivation. They will be utilizing light deprivation to achieve 2 harvests annually. The water source is a well. It's located on the adjacent parcel, which is under the same ownership. The permit for the adjacent parcel has not been processed yet. So this well will be serving 2 parcels. Their water source, or their annual water usage is 185,000 gallons and 929 gallons annually, which is 9.30 gallons per square foot. And they have 24,000 gallons of water storage on site. They will be utilizing PG&E as an energy source, and all processing will occur off-site at a licensed third-party processing facility. This is just a photo of the site plan that has been submitted. There are 2 cultivation areas, one in the north, one in the west, south, and there is a pond on site. You'll hear more about this pond. It has been removed as an irrigation source for the project. So the project history. So there was some ground disturbance prior to permit approval. We asked that the applicant submit a floristic survey because they had not submitted one initially. CDFW received the floristic survey and asked that revisions be submitted. They did approve of the revisions to the floristic survey. The irrigation pond that was going to be used initially was found to be hydrologically connected by CDFW, so the applicant did remove the pond as an irrigation water source. CDFW did find some discrepancies in the biological assessment that was submitted. We did request that the applicant submit additional information for the biological assessment. We received those revisions and submitted them to CDFW last Friday. We did have an extended weekend, so they have not responded yet. Cliff Johnson and I did conduct a site visit on the Tuesday of this week, and at this point in time, that is where the project stands. And a supplemental was submitted to you late this evening, where the Environmental Protection Information Center did ask that the project be continued until CDFW has an opportunity to comment on the project.
Any questions for staff? I'll have one then, since nobody else wants to put my hand up though. There we go. So I'm just curious why this got pulled and sent to the commission from being done by. I'm just curious, that was brought up at the beginning, so it's just.
So it's a fair question. And the reason is that there have been concerns and disagreements over the biological work that's been done. And so in order to allow a full public vetting of the work that's been done, the zoning administrator decided not to hear this.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Oh, Thomas, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
So the biological assessment, how can we have an accurate biological assessment if the site is graded beforehand? And I'm going to piggyback on that because I know many people that have done things the right way and waited to grade until all of the biological studies were done and the appropriate permits were acquired. So I don't know. That one challenges me, especially for new cultivation.
I can speak to that, Director Ford, if you're okay with it. So there was no new grading done on this parcel. They did remove vegetation around the pond. The applicant stated that vegetation was choking the pond that they intended to use for irrigation, so they removed vegetation. The biological assessment stated that should additional ground disturbance be proposed, that a botanical survey be submitted. So we requested upon the biological assessment's recommendation that a botanical survey be submitted. It wasn't until after the botanical survey was submitted that I called into question the work that was done and submitted in the biological assessment.
Abby, can I try to add some clarification, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that the work that began without permits or without authorization was the eastern parcel, which is the next item on the agenda. Is that correct?
Work was done prior to permit approval on the eastern parcel as well, but we did seek that the floristic survey be completed because of the work that was done prior to permit approval on this parcel.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff before we open this up to the public? All right, seeing none, I'm going to open this up for public comment. Looks like Kent, you're up. You there?
Yep, takes a little bit of time to get there, but I'm here. I'm really, really, really pleased. I'm going to take back some things I said about Epic, and I'm pleased to see their participation. I can't remember. I think this is the first time. And especially having the back of a project that sounds like it needs to be worked out a little bit more before you get there and give everybody a chance. There's obviously a reason why this didn't go forward under John Ford there, because obviously there were some questions. Otherwise, it would have been handled by the zoning administrator. I also, maybe I misunderstood a little bit on the topic, but it sounds like there's a third permit or something on an adjacent parcel. That's kind of what I got from the presentation there. Maybe I'm wrong that it hasn't been completed. It's not ready to be vetted, but those permits should all be bundled together and addressed as one concern, as far as I'm concerned. I always have concerns because you have projects that are based upon the same work, the same ground. But my understanding is those permits and projects could be split off and sold at any time and have potentially 3 different ownerships based upon a commingled project. I don't see any reason to move forward on this tonight. I would support Epic in the request for a continuance, especially when you have an environmental group, that's coming forward on something. And the same as CDFW had concerns. It's also, we have a pond on this one. The last one we had a pond. So is there a letter from the State Water Board saying that pond needs to be removed also? It sounds like it's kind of similar, maybe hydrologically connected to a stream and not knowing site specific, but kind of sounds like apples and apples. And I'm just curious, do you have a letter and a staff question to ask your staff? Do they have a letter also from the Water Board saying they're okay with this pond and they weren't with the other one? So that always, those discrepancies or things like that kind of lead me to question. So I wouldn't move too fast, but hey, maybe we're in a hurry. Don't know. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Next caller is 7429. You there, 7429?
Yes. Hi, good evening. So on this particular plan, it looks like on May 13th, CDFW said there was discrepancies in the biological assessment. So that's really, very recent. So I agreed also that there were many red flags in the assessment. Just take this little sentence here, item 4.1. The biologist is visiting a 353.81 acre parcel, and their comments on the wildlife is no mammals, no amphibians, no fish, and no birds were observed. No wildlife, no problem. No wonder CDFW was concerned. So a new biological assessment response to those concerns was submitted on May 27th, and it doesn't seem that now, June 3rd, would be an appropriate time to make a decision before you have CDFW's review, time to review everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is 7108.
Hi. I'm calling just to question how the wells were determined to be not hydrologically connected to any surface waters. And this is very confusing, having these two permits that aren't really next to each other, but they're intertied by the well water usage or something. I think it would be nice to get that straightened up when you come back, because I agree with the previous people that there should be, you should wait and get the response from California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other callers that would like to comment on this? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment and bring this back to the panel.
There was a hand that went up, and I think
that's Vanessa.
That's the agent. Okay.
So I'll go ahead and let her speak now as a panelist, since that's where it showed up on my list anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
So she may have some rebuttal to some of the things that were brought up. So go ahead, Vanessa, if you're with us.
Good evening, commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for your time. I just want to start by addressing some of the concerns that were raised and the concerns from CDFW. First, I would just like to really point out that the pond is not a part of the cannabis projects at all. The pond is simply for fire protection now. It has been removed. We've also finished the lake and stream alteration agreement with supervision from CDFW, and we paid all the fees and it's been accepted and it is in process now. Also, in regards to the biologicals, just to be specific, that the comment about no animals was referring to special species status animals, not all animals in general. And also about the wells were applied for in the CDFW paperwork and determined by Fish and Wildlife to not be connected and not need to be paid for within the lake and stream alteration agreement. A few other things just to address about the permit and the biologicals. My environmental scientist, Austin Theriault, will also be responding after me to any more questions or concerns you have, as he's the one who did the paperwork. He's completed 7 site visits at the site at the request of multiple agencies to gather and collect data. And that data ranges from plant and animal surveys, as well as road assessment and site evaluation data. I would just like to say a few more things, that this project is completely powered by PG&E and renewable energy on site. It's outdoor cultivation only. There's no light pollution or generator noise. There's no rare or endangered wildlife, plants, or trees that have been identified on this site over 11 combined site visits from 3 different environmental scientists. All the proposed cultivation areas have no slopes and no central sensitive natural communities that will be disturbed in the selected locations. The water is provided by the 2 wells that are non-jurisdictional over both projects. John Mahoney is community oriented, and He is a member of this community for over 50 years. They have children that attended school here that are now in college and graduating from college. They contribute to the local fire departments, the schools, and food bank charities regularly. They use biodynamic farm practices. They have other farm stuff that they do. They raise horses, goats, geese, and ducks. I really just think that this has been painted in a different light than it really is. It's a great property for this project. And I hope the commission can also take time to listen to Austin Theriault and ask any questions they might have about the biologicals of him. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Valerie or Austin? I'll put my hand up. I'm not sure that it's necessarily a question for either of them, but I got the impression that CDFW, from listening to her, was okay with things. So I guess the question is, which is it? Is CDFW okay with the project, or is CDFW not okay with the project?
So specifically, I think we can say conclusively, CDFW has accepted the floristic survey. They have not commented on the remaining portion of the biological work at this point.
And the second part to that question would be then, have they had that information for the appropriate number of days that they're supposed to have that information?
So we received it late last week. They received it on 6/1, which is less than a week ago.
Okay. So that answers it. Thank you.
Why did they receive it on 6/1?
I don't know who that is speaking, but.
So Abby, could you explain to us the date that we received the revised material that we forwarded to CDFW?
I sent CDFW the revised materials on Friday morning. However, I was told that the contact for CDFW for referral responses to projects are generally the person who completes the 1600 agreement. And in this case, it was Christine Vertical Hahn. And she had already voiced to me that on Friday, she would be out on a site visit all day. So I knew she wouldn't actually receive the information on Friday. Therefore, the next available date for her to have actually read it would have been Tuesday.
When did we receive that material?
We received that material Thursday evening at, I believe, 10 p.m.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you. Melanie, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I was wondering what the response was in terms of the floristic survey. I read through it and the addendum as well, where the qualifications were discussed and more of the field methodology was laid out. The size of the vegetation plots does seem a bit small. I think there were only 10 2x2 plots. And so I'm wondering if that was a potential concern. Also, randomized is good in terms of, getting the general picture, but when you're looking at a site like this, it's also actually good and counterintuitively to look for features that might harbor special species. So unique habitats, for example. So generally, while we, want the randomized survey in science, but yes, but we also look for those special habitats.
I'm sorry, Melanie, can you rephrase your question?
Yes, I was wondering what the response was in terms of the floristic survey. I've looked through everything myself, including the addendum. I personally did find that two things: that it was randomized is fine and good, but I would also like to see the addition of looking for unique habitats. So usually when we do these kinds of site reviews or ESAs, you want to do a randomized vegetation sampling methodology, but also you want to look for unique habitats as well, so that you can look for, those botanical species that might live only there. So two things: the small size of the randomized sample, that you did. I think it was 10 2x2 plots, and lack of unique habitat in the survey. And then the third thing was, what was the response? I think I heard the planning director say that there was a response regarding the floristic survey.
If I could, Abby, if I'm wrong, correct me on this, but I think that we've received a verbal acceptance of the floristic survey. We've not received that in writing as of this date. So we have not received a formal written response on any of the material.
That is correct. I did attend a meeting with Greg O'Connell from CDFW, as well as the author of the addendum, which is Austin Theriault. First, one of the purposes of the floristic survey addendum was that they didn't survey the impact areas, the actual project sites. It was very randomized and over 350 acres. We are most concerned about where the cultivation is going. Additionally, the biological assessment identified one invasive species, which to me I was skeptical, because in the photos they provided in the biological assessment, there were additional invasive species that weren't brought up. So Austin in his addendum also identified additional invasive species. And in our meeting with Greg O'Connell, he did verbally approve of the additions to the addendum. However, he did comment that Austin was not qualified to make calls on wetlands, and the biological assessment that we received, we asked for methodology and how they determined that no wetlands were on site when there is a wetland mapped in the National Wetland Inventory on our GIS system. And so I don't believe at this point that we've actually ruled out the possibility of a wetland on the parcel we're talking about now, because we haven't actually had the information reviewed by CDFW.
Yeah, and that seems to be omitted in the floristic survey as well, in the sense that only the randomized sampling was done rather than looking at unique habitats and doing the randomized vegetation samples. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. Like, I don't understand. I mean, I've had to do a lot of projects, and I don't understand how it's even on the agenda if it's not done yet. I mean, do you anticipate it's going to be done before when you put it on?
I can answer that question.
Okay.
Everybody has a right to a hearing. And at some point, things are brought forward.
I understand then.
Now go ahead, Noah.
Okay. Well, hello. Sorry,
Hello?
Is there another person speaking right now?
I don't know. Noah, you got the floor.
Okay. I think I just wanted to say that, you know, from what I can tell, this project itself actually looks pretty good. You know, I sort of, on one level, I hate to have all this, you know, be impugning the project, because I actually think this project, when all is said and done, has fairly limited impacts and has its, will be a good project. But in terms of the timeliness, I mean, I should say I didn't know, I had no notice that Epic was going to make this request, but I had come to the conclusion, just from my own reading of the materials, that I would not feel comfortable voting to move this forward without having heard from CDFW in this case, just because they've been sort of dragged into the process. And in this instance, it's the interagency communications and concerns that were raised about the sufficiency of botanical reports by CDFW that caused it to be delayed. And it just feels to me like we've now had half the story, but not the other half to fully assess that. So I personally, without thinking that everything that's negative that's been said about this project is true, but I would be more comfortable not making a decision on this tonight, but continuing it so that CDFW does have their chance to respond. That's all I have.
Thank you, Noah. I'm going to comment since I see no other hands. I'm not much for continuing things, as you probably know, but it just seems to me that this one isn't ready to go forward. If CDFW had this information and just didn't reply, but they'd had it for the number of days, I'd feel just the opposite.
Yeah.
They have a lot of staff. And
Oh yeah.
So
thank you.
I feel like this one should be pushed out as well. And I'm going to guess it's the same thing with the next one, but we'll take them as separate projects and move on. Thomas, I see you had your hand up.
So I just was rereading stuff and I may have missed it. This information, was that forwarded to the commission, the stuff that came forward on June 1? The responses? Was that information that I missed somehow?
Are you asking if we saw the response to concerns, the attachment 3D? That's the one that I was referring to, which was dated 5/27.
Okay, the responses that were, yeah, maybe.
It's a document that says at the beginning, compiled document to address concerns remaining on John Mahoney Schroeder Rock Biologicals. That's the internal title, but it's attachment 3D in the documents that I got for this. I think it's for the first Mahoney project. It might have been for the second. I'm a little confused by that part.
They should have been attached to both.
Okay.
Okay, I apologize if I didn't read through that. My concern, if I was reading this right, is this is new cultivation, and it states in here that there's 0 water storage on this project, or this parcel. So that's a huge concern to me. Yeah, it'd be nice to see water storage. It's nice that there's water storage on adjacent parcels, but as commenters said before, this parcel technically could be sold off to someone else and has no water storage.
The staff report was written when there was no water storage on the parcel, and following our site visit, mine and Cliff Johnson's on Tuesday, we noticed that there were water tanks that had been added to the parcel, and so the applicant has submitted an updated site plan, and I believe now there's 3,000 gallons of water storage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So any other questions for staff, or does anybody want to make a motion as to where we should take this next?
Correction, there's 24,000 gallons of water storage on that parcel currently.
I have a question for the director. Should we move to motion to move this to the next meeting or to a date uncertain, if that's where we're going with it?
If you're relatively comfortable with the project, with the exception of having responses from CDFW, then move to continuance to June 17th would be fine. If there's other things that you would like to see addressed, then I would either recommend that you continue it to a date uncertain or move it out to July 1st to give us some time to work on things.
I'll motion to move it to continue it to June 17th.
We have a motion to move it to June 17th. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it. It's Peggy.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion in a second? All right, seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder. Yes. Noah Levy.
Yes.
Mike Newman.
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill.
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous, and this will be carried to the next meeting of June 17th. Continued, I should say, not carried. All right. So we can take a break about now, but I'm gonna see if we can get through this next one, because I think it's gonna be relatively fast, and then we'll take a break before we move on. So next one is item number 4, which is also John Mahoney in the Harris area. And I guess we should take a staff report on it.
I could just motion.
Might I recommend, yes, since this is the same circumstance, that perhaps the same action is the appropriate result.
Okay, I'd be fine. Should we open it up to the public then, or?
You should open it up to the applicant.
Okay, so that's where I was kind of why I thought we should have the whole thing. So I'll open it up to the public right now for any comment, and then we'll bring it back to continue it. Is there anybody that wishes to comment on this item? See what hand, 7108, go ahead.
Hi, I just have one question about the well, and is how is it certified that it's not hydrologically connected to any surface water? Did CDF do that, or who did? So, thank you.
Any other public? Just speak on this one. All right, seeing none, would the director like to, or staff want to address that one question?
I think what I would offer is that we will bring, that was asked on both projects. We will bring an explanation of that back more thoroughly and present that when the projects come back. All
right. With that, I'm going to close the public comment and bring it back to the commission. And I entertain a motion to continue this one also to the June 17th meeting.
I'll motion to continue this item till June 17th.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote, please.
Alan Bongio.
Yes.
Noah Levy.
Yes.
Thomas Mulder. Yes. Mike Newman.
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill.
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimous. We will now take a 5-minute break before we start going into the items that were pulled from the consent agenda. So we'll see you back in 5 minutes. In the Bridgeville area, and we'll take a staff report. Is there anybody there?
Pardon me, Alan, what item are we on?
Green Bridge.
Thank you.
I'll be presenting that. Just give me a second.
No problem. Sorry if I didn't give enough time.
Oh, that's okay. This is running back across the room. Greenbridge Holdings Incorporated is a conditional use permit. It is for 20,084 square feet existing outdoor, some of which is within light deprivation greenhouses and half of it is full sun on this 40-acre parcel. Irrigation water is sourced from a permitted groundwater well There's 25,000 gallon rainwater catchment tank and an additional 14,000 of hard tank storage. Annual water usage is about 200,000 gallons. And power is currently provided by 2 generators, a solar array system, as well as Pacific Gas and Electric power drop. An additional power drop is planned so that generator use can be limited to emergency uses only. Sorry for a very wordy slide, but I wanted to clarify about the power, bio, and water on this slide. 1 generator is used at the upper greenhouse and 1 is used for the well currently. The 3 lower greenhouses are all supplied already by a PG&E power drop. And so an agricultural power drop is scheduled to occur within 6 months for the remaining greenhouse at the upper site. At that point, electricity could be supplied exclusively through PG&E, and the generators will just be retained for emergency use. The nearest spotted owl nest, or activity center, I should say, is about 1.1 miles from the site, and NIAID Biological Consulting prepared a biological assessment report, and they concluded that there is some potential for sensitive and protected species. However, the site is the continued use of existing developed sites, so the potential for indirect impacts are largely mitigated, was the conclusion of the biologist. The groundwater well is drawing from 120 to 260 foot deep layer. It's where it's screened. The well has been permitted, and it has been determined by Pacific Watershed Associates in a hydrologic evaluation report that it's unlikely to be connected to surface waters. And their conclusion, if I remember correctly, was largely due to the evaluation of that it's on a ridge top and 2,000 feet or more from the nearest stream, and the geology of the underlying bedrock. Here's just a picture of the site plan. So you can see in the upper right, the site is accessed via a road driveway easement directly off of State Highway 36. It's approximately 3 miles east from the intersection of Alder Point Road and 36. And Public Works identified the road suitable for safe access to the project site. You'll note a red dotted line through the diagonally crossing through. That's a PG&E easement through the property. And you can see the lower site is on the left where currently there is PG&E power. And at the upper right site where there's solar power panels and a generator would be where the planned additional power drop would occur. It's the recommendation of after a review by Planning Division staff that in the referral agency responses that the applicant has submitted evidence in support of making all the required findings for approval of the conditional use permit. That concludes my presentation.
Is there any questions for staff? Can you minimize your screen, please? There we go. Thank you. So, any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I will open this. Oh, I'm sorry. Seeing none, I will open up this to the public. And is there any public that would like to speak on this item? Well, there was public that wanted this pulled before. I believe it was 7018, but go ahead, 7454.
Kim, maybe I'll do a 3-minute filler, and maybe the person who pulled this can call in.
Yeah.
I did want to make comment on PG&E, and I don't know if it's different now, but PG&E wasn't difficult for me at all. I just went ahead and had them go ahead and run a down below their transformer, a line down where at the bottom of the pole. I put my 4-inch conduit in. It went over to the power boxes. I set up for 3 of them. so the neighbors could all hook up to it when they desired. And I went ahead and had trench inspections, got my own permit, have a backhoe, ran the pipe down there. And last week, the first person used the other conduit that I had, which saved him a whole bunch of money. Didn't have to go to PG&E at all as far as that, just had to have his boxes inspected. So there are ways to get around PG&E, and maybe it's impossible to get them run power down a pole, but here you say you got power running right through there, and that's how I would recommend do it. You might need to get an easement like I did with my neighbor, and he benefited greatly from having that done. So let me know if that's changed out there. So just too easy sometimes, but maybe that's just how it was for me. I listened to the PG&E guy, and that's what he told me I ought to do. So it's all undergrounded, nothing overhead, no poles to put in, and it's all 3 feet down in conduit. So maybe you people out there are having problems with PG&E ought to try that one. That's my suggestion on all these projects.
Thank you, Kent. Is there any other public that would wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section and bring it back to the commission. And does anybody have any questions for staff on this, or anybody ready to make a recommendation?
I don't see anybody raising their hand with questions, so I will move that we find, I will read the full recommended commission action. I move that we find the commission has considered the addendum to the adopted mitigated negative declaration for the commercial medical marijuana land use ordinance as described by section 15164 of the State California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, make all of the required findings for approval of the conditional use permit, and adopt the resolution approving the Greenbridge Holdings Incorporated conditional use permit as recommended by staff, subject to the recommended conditions.
I'll second that.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Ellen Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Melanie McCare.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimous. So the next item is item number 2, Organic Humboldt Incorporated in the Bryceland area. So we'll have a staff report, please.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Abby Strickland. I'm the assigned planner for Organic Humboldt Incorporated, application number 12307. The subject parcel is located west of the Redway area in the Bryceland area. It is a legal parcel zoned unclassified with the land use designation of residential agriculture. The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit for 12,648 square feet of existing outdoor commercial cannabis cultivation. They will be utilizing light deprivation techniques to achieve 2 harvests annually. The water source is a groundwater well with a projected annual water usage of 46,800 gallons or 3.70 gallons per square foot. Water storage totals 10,000 gallons, and the applicant has proposed additional water storage including 5,000 gallon water tanks each year until they meet the forbearance requirement. The energy for the project will be relying on a generator. There are very minimal energy needs, and they also have some solar powered equipment, and they are proposing additional solar panels. Processing will occur on site in an existing structure, and they anticipate needing between 2 and 3 employees. Here's a picture of their site plan. The green squares are the different cultivation areas. The blue circle is where the well is located, which is approximately 300 feet from the nearest class 3 watercourse. And the red triangle is their 1,200 square foot immature plant space. The well It did have a pump test of 3 gallons per minute over a 4-hour pump test, which was conducted in September of 2018. As I stated, they're over 300 feet away from the Class 3 water course, and the well is 230 feet deep. We did receive public comment, which you received as a supplemental, I believe, this morning. The public commenter stated the applicant does not contribute to road maintenance. The applicant did submit to me receipts for the Road Maintenance Association for the China Creek Road RMA. The public commenter stated that the applicant is taking water from a creek because the well is not producing enough water. However, the applicant maintains that their well is sufficient, and in the conditions of approval, they will be required to meter their water and submit an annual water usage document to the planning department each year. So if we find that their water is not, or their well is not producing enough water, then we will ask them to seek other methods such as rainwater catchment or forbearance. And the applicant is apparently trucking water. After a conversation with the applicant's agent, Nate Madsen, who's here today and can speak to this, the applicant maintains that they've never trucked water. Planning staff recommend that the Commission adopt the resolution, finding that the Commission has considered the mitigative negative declaration for the commercial medical marijuana land use ordinance pursuant to section 15164 of the state CEQA guidelines, and make all the required findings for approval of the special permit for Organic Humboldt Inc.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open this up for public comment. Anybody like to speak on this now? 7454, go ahead.
Yeah, I did wish to make comment on some of the objections or potential objections on this. There's a real problem here with trucked water, and I'm not saying this person is doing that, but in speaking with your staff, there really is no way to enforce this. And this is going to be a critical issue. This is the time when the supervisor ought to be passing an emergency ordinance for anybody who's worried about trucked water, where the person who has a truck gets an invoice from where he gets the water, where the water is going, you have contact information. And if somebody is found to be either trucking water illegally, they will lose their ability to truck water in the future. The person receiving that water will lose their permit, their cannabis permit. And until you initiate this, I'm just this well, that well, you know, 4-hour test. I just wanted to see what mine was doing, so I ran one of it for 30 hours over the weekend here, and it was still pumping 8 gallons, you know, during that time period. But 3 gallons per minute isn't much. In a 4-hour test is non-existent. There's also reports out there regarding water, and that you have people in forbearance. These are very credible sources, and they are on a regular basis topping their tanks off during the forbearance period. So that's something your staff needs to address. Water needs to be addressed, and I don't know if there's. I'm guessing that your neighbor, the neighbor on this one's probably going to be taking a picture if you have a water truck pull up there. If people do see water being trucked to a cannabis thing, it's time that Mother Nature had a bunch of narking rat bastards, is the term I use, out there calling in and letting you know, here's a picture of a truck with the water being delivered. And then I would hope that your department would not just try to bring them in compliance, but that would be the end of their permit permanently with prejudice. And any other permits they might have would go away also. Water is going to be the main thing, as you can see a lot of people are speaking about that. And I hope that hope it's a good project. I can't say. It sounds like maybe you have a neighbor who has an agenda. Hopefully that neighbor's going to call in and clarify. And of course, you know, I won't accuse people of things, you know, until something's proven. So thank you for the opportunity to speak on this one.
Thank you, Kent. Public 7108.
Hi. I just had some comments about the well of who determined it was not hydrologically connected, and this test or whatever done in 2018 to get 3 gallons a minute, conditions have really changed, and it'd be very interesting to see what the output is now in this, after these couple of years of drought. And my second one is my concerns about possible fire, and I'm where these minimal energy supplied by a generator, wondering where that generator is going to be, and is it going to be running when there isn't anybody nearby in case a fire starts? And is there water located at that site where the generator is in case a fire does start? Okay, those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other public that wishes to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I will bring it back to the commission. Oh, okay, and I'm going to let the applicant speak first to address any of those questions. So Nathan Madsen, please.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Bongio. Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Organic Humboldt, and thank you, staff, for all of your work on this project. I know it takes an incredible amount of effort to process these permits, and it is appreciated. My name is Nate Madsen. I am with Rain and Zep PLC. I speak on behalf of Organic Humboldt, and I just thought I would address the concerns raised directly and make myself available for any other questions. The largest issue I'm hearing is in relation to the well, and I can, my response to the neighbor's complaints is already in the record. When I spoke to the applicant about the trucked water, he actually lost sleep over it. I will say this, Powell Road, which is the road that services this project, does drive through the parcel, and there are other projects and non-projects on the other side. So my suspicion is maybe the neighbor is correct, but the trucked water is not going to this site. One of the questions is related to water use. One of the answers to that is meters, and I will say that the meter was installed today. So getting to approval is a really beneficial to ensuring these projects actually get to the point where they're meeting the necessary ingredients, and that has happened as of today. Power was also a concern. This project uses minimal power. The generator on site is a very small Honda. I don't recall if it was a 2,000 or 3,000 watt, but it is one of those. And it is run for minimal, a couple of hours here and there. And there is some minimal solar, and there is some intentions to get additional solar on site to help meet the demands. Kent was concerned about the 3 gallon per minute test. The solar system for the pump has been upgraded, and the current flow from the well is 6 gallons per minute, and the well is pumped at approximately 1 to 3 hours a day, and that meets the entirety of the project's demands. This is Organic Humboldt is conservative with their water use. They water at night only to avoid evaporation. They use a high water retention soil medium so that they don't have to water that much, that often, and are very serious about water conservation, and that's why the use is so low. I want to address Bonnie's concerns about the well. I really appreciate Abby's schematic. I think that really did a good job of showing the geology layers and how and why these wells can be determined to be either connected to surface water or not, and in this case not. I have also been convinced by Sanctuary Forest, although Sanctuary Forest is a strong advocate for storage and forbearance. They have also put out materials that have convinced me that the absolute best place on earth to store our water is in the ground. And I think that the groundwater well inclusion in the code was actually done intentionally and with foresight. And as long as the wells are determined to be hydrologically disconnected, I suspect that's probably our best method of water conservation moving forward in the future. That said, the applicant is more than happy to add more tanks and willing to add rain catchment as well. Bonnie's concern about the fire, the generator is housed or will be housed in a shed and will be contained that way. And as far as is there fire water available on site? Yes, the SRA fire water reserve tanks are near the well and available anytime that there would be a fire, which to date there has not been. And I'll save any remaining time I have for any additional questions anyone might have. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Nate, does anybody have questions for Nathan? Seeing none, so thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. So bring it back to the commission. What do we want to do? Everybody go at once. Go ahead, Noah.
Speaking for myself, I really appreciated the explanations just given by Mr. Madsen. That certainly answered, and I answered a couple of questions that I had, including exactly how the annual estimated water usage was quite so low. But in any case, I have no further concerns. I'm happy to make a motion if nobody else has further questions.
You got the floor, go for it.
Okay, then I move that we adopt the resolution finding that the commission has considered the addendum to the adopted mitigated negative declaration for the commercial medical land use ordinance pursuant to section 15164 of the state CEQA guidelines, making all the required findings for approval of the CUP and adopt the resolution approving the organic Humboldt Incorporated project subject to the recommended conditions.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can I just state one thing, Alan?
Go ahead.
To the motion maker and the seconder, would you entertain any idea of increasing water storage? Because if I see it right, 10,000 gallons of water storage, an SRA hydrant, unless it's changed, is 2,500 gallons. So that would only give the project 7,500 gallons. And if there is concerns with water, that may mitigate some of the concerns, but maybe I'm reading it wrong.
I can answer that question. The applicant has actually agreed to obtain an additional 9,000 gallons of water storage for this season, and he will be adding an additional 5,000 gallon water tank each year until he meets his estimated annual water usage of 46,800 gallons.
That sounds good. Thanks for bringing up that subject, Thomas.
All right, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimous. All right, now we're rolling. So we will go to item number 4 was okay on consent. 5, continue. Item number 6, which is Scrap Acres LLC in the Redwood Valley area. Have a staff report. Please.
Good evening, commissioners.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Cade McNamara, and I will be presenting this project. This is Scrap Acres LLC. They are seeking a conditional use permit on excessive parcel number 316-085-001 in the Redwood Valley area. Here you see this is a proximity map. Right here is the Vista Point, which many of you may be familiar with. This is Old Three Creeks Road, which the parcel is accessed off of. This is a 168-acre parcel, which is zoned agriculturally exclusive with a land use designation of residential agriculture. This conditional use permit is requesting 9,091 square feet of existing mixed light cannabis cultivation and 5,580 square feet of existing outdoor cultivation. Annual water usage is estimated at 200,000 gallons per year. Also 13.6 gallons per square feet per year. Power source will be provided by 2 generators with a proposal to transition to solar entirely by the 2022 season. There are 4 primary employees and 3 part-time employees for the peak of season. All product is going to be processed via a licensed third party. I would like to note that both this permit and John Parample, which will be the presentation following, are the same owner and do have the same water source. This water source is located on APN 316-085-001. It is a permitted well that is enrolled with the Division of Water Rights as referenced in the staff report. Here you'll see cultivation areas. I did a snippet of the site plan as this is a very large parcel. Here you'll see mixed light cultivation totaling 6,366 square feet with an outdoor canopy of 1,485 square feet. This is cultivation area 2. Cultivation area 2 encapsulates 4,095 square feet of outdoor cannabis cultivation. And then you have cultivation area 3, which encapsulates 2,725 square feet of mixed light cultivation. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution approving the conditional use permit subject to the conditions of approval. We find the project consistent with the mitigated negative declaration adopted for the CMMLUO per 15164 of CEQA guidelines, and that all required findings of approval have been made for this conditional use permit. I am happy to take questioning, as I'm sure there may be some.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody have questions? Okay. Commission. No? Okay. Well, we'll move on and open up the public comment. Let's see. I'll now open this up to public comment. Anybody who's would like to speak on this, go ahead now. 7108. Go ahead.
Hi. I had a couple questions. One concerning the generators that'll be at 2 different sites. I'm concerned about generators running in this drought and high fire danger without anybody being there. So those are questions about that. And there's talk in here about a proposed well. Is there going to be some kind of a study or something to make sure the proposed well isn't going to be hydrologically connected to any other surface water? So those are my 2 things, water and fire. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public that would wish to speak on this one? Seeing no more hands? Okay. I see that environmental health would like to speak on this one. So go ahead, Mario.
Thanks a lot. My question is similar to the last question. Well, clarification. I think I had some exchanges with the planning department today related to the proposed well, and I think that there was a supplemental which modified that language. So please clarify that, in which case my questions and comments will go to the next project.
Okay. Thank you. Would somebody from staff like to address that?
I'd be happy to respond. There was a updated project description sent out this AM. That project description does accurately reflect the findings within the staff report. And the edits made originally noticed that there would be a proposed well and that water is coming from a existing well and point of diversion. This is erroneous. Water is actually coming from a permitted well. There is, this well is connected hydrologically and is enrolled with the Division of Water Rights. There is no well proposal on this site, and they plan to use this well for the life of the project. And regarding generators, to the original commentee, this project is only using generators for this year. Next year, the applicant will be utilizing a solar array that they will be implementing by the end of season.
Thank you, Kate. Any other questions from the commission? Go ahead, Noah.
Oh, just on that last point, question to Cade. Since you mentioned that they will be transitioning to a solar array, can you speak to what the conditions precisely in the of this permit would say about requiring that? Or is there any requirement addressed in the conditions?
So this project is historically bordering NSO habitat, and so there have been strict conditions put on the generator usage. Both generators are to be housed within enclosures and currently exist within enclosures to mitigate sound. And we put a slightly stringent, more stringent recommendation that it be at 50 decibels from 100 feet of the noise source, as recommended by Fish and Wildlife. And to answer your question more directly, there is a condition that they will be moving to solar power. This will be done by the year 2022. If you like, we can revise the condition to ensure that this be done, but I believe this is already done. I can clarify that right now.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thomas, go ahead.
So I just want to, I swear I heard staff, Cade, is that how I enunciate your name?
Yes, sir.
Say the water is sourced from a hydrologically connected well. And if that's the case, I don't know how we can approve this project with the water storage it has, or did I mishear staff?
No, that is correct. And the current water storage is 15,950 gallons of storage used specifically for irrigation. There is an additional 32,500 for domestic and fire suppression that could also be potentially used for irrigation. The well is hydrologically connected as deemed by the Division of Water Rights, which is why they have an enrollment. If the recommendation is that there be additional storage, that can be implemented into the conditions of approval. However, there is nearly 48,000 gallons of storage on site that could be potentially utilized for this site.
So can I follow up on that, Chair Bongio?
Absolutely.
So with that said, if this project is approved as it is tonight, the Planning Commission would be condoning diversions outside the forbearance period, because if they're going to use 200,000 gallons of water and they have 16,000 gallons stored, I don't see how you can authorize more than cultivating what 16,000 gallons of water will get you.
Understand the concern there, Mr. Mulder. We can always add additional conditions, particularly that they forbear and that they include additional storage. Does the Planning Commission have a recommended additional storage that they would like to be implemented for this project?
If I could interrupt here for a minute, Cade. So with the water right that they have, does that give them the ability to draw water all year long, or does that place restrictions on them in terms of withdrawing water only during the period when water can be drawn and then requires them to forbear?
I believe that within state requirements that they would need to forbear. All of these tanks are being filled. For instance, the 32,500 gallons of domestic and fire could be potentially used for irrigation. But to answer your question, forbearance can be.
So I would say, just in response to Mr. Mulder's question, that we do need to add a condition requiring that water storage be added to the site to allow the project to collect water during the wet season and then to forbear during the normal forbearance period.
Can I add one more thing, Chair Bongio?
Yes, please do.
So this well is, the water source is like exactly what we've been hearing from public concern, hydrologically connected. So if the commission were to approve an ounce of this water to be used for cultivation from now on, that's condoning basically what the community is in uproar about. So I don't know how they're going to afford more water storage if they can't grow their whole site this year. But I also don't know how people, I don't know, it's a tough one for me.
I would like to say that the well, though it is enrolled with the Division of Water Rights, there hasn't been a legitimate determination by a hydrological professional to deem it hydrologically connected. It is enrolled with the Division of Water Rights as a courtesy, and I believe that that could be an unfair levying against this project. I believe that if we were to have a hydrologist do an analysis on this well, that we could find that it not be hydrologically connected. The Division of Water Rights, according to the agent who I'll allow to speak on behalf of the applicant, they do not believe is hydrologically connected. I will go ahead and allow them to speak on that behalf.
Is that person with us right now as an attendee? Is that Dan M?
Yes, Dan.
Okay, go ahead, Dan. I'm gonna let you speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. My name is Dan Marn. I'm the one of the agents on this project, and I would like to clarify a couple of things in regards to the well. This well is 200 feet deep, and what the process for wells not only goes through the county, but for a well to be deemed complete, it has to go through the Division of Water Rights. A well does not have a completion of a project until it does so. So there is not a water right on this well because it is hydrologically connected. This well has a completion report stating that the state officially notices that there is a groundwater well at this particular parcel. This well is at the top of a ridge. It is far from any class 2, 3, or 1 water sources. We have a complete bore log stating such, and fish drilling can back that up as well. So I wanted to just clarify on this that we are looking at a groundwater well, and the only process that has occurred with the state is that it has been registered with the Division of Water Rights like every groundwater well should be.
Thank you, Dan. Melanie, I see you have your hand up, so go ahead.
Yeah, I just a point of clarification. Are we talking about the spring that they're drawing 87,000 gallons of air from?
There is no spring diversion. There were historically 3 spring diversions on a adjacent parcel that have been decommissioned as a plan that was implemented by the new owner of these projects.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Go ahead, Thomas.
The hydrological question, I was trying to see if there was a completed 1600 or was it 1602 to verify through DFW, but it looks like this is just a draft from March 12th, so. I don't know.
Go ahead, Director.
I don't believe CDFW is confirming whether or not wells are hydrologically connected any longer. For a while they were doing that, but I think they stopped doing that some time ago.
Okay, that's new to me. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands, I'm gonna comment. I'm having trouble with this one as well because of the statement that it's hydrologically connected. But I've heard what makes it sound like it's not hydrologically connected too. So my suggestion would be that this gets continued till we have somebody who can certify that it is or it isn't hydrologically connected. But
I would like to say that was an error on my behalf. I can provide the well completion log to you guys. The screening of this well.
Hey, Kate, right now we need to let the commission speak.
yeah, I would, that'd be great if you can show us, Kate, where it says that it's been connected or not connected hydrologically, and somebody certified that, somebody that has the credentials to certify that. But otherwise, I think that this is something that should be continued till we have that. But I see Melanie has her hand up, so we'll talk about it some more.
Actually, from before, but I would like to hear, what Kate has recently discovered in his documents.
Okay, go ahead. Whatever you
to respond, I am not a licensed hydrologist or hydrogeologist, as you would say, but I do have, experience with, reviewing well logs. I can share my screen here if you'd like to show you where the screening is for this well here. And I have done a site visit to this site, and I can confirm that what Dan is saying with the well being located on a ridge is true. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Can you guys see this over here? Alrighty. So what we're seeing is that there's screening from 60 to 195 feet, 195 feet being the overall depth of the well. You can see here the different kinds of sediment encapsulating this. Here you'll see hard basalt and boulder at the deepest portion of the well, and then where you're going to see the beginning of the screening, you'll see a shale mix, a basalt and shale mix. These are typically indicators of the closure of a potential groundwater aquifer. But again, to reiterate, I am not a hydrogeologist, but I did make an error in my presentation.
Anybody have any questions for Cade while he's got this up on the screen still or anything? Go ahead, Thomas.
I can't read this. What depth did the water hit? Because it was kind of a blurred scan.
There is a screening that begins at 60 feet when it starts to reach a basalt and shale mix. The screening doesn't necessarily indicate that water begins intake there, but it does go down to a depth of 195 feet.
But I was trying to get, it should say in there when they hit their first water in the well completion report is what I was trying to get at.
Commissioner Mulder, it is, the depth to first water was at 77 feet.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, thoughts on where we should go with this one?
I have a question because I'm confused on a couple of things, but you say that you made an error. So when you said that it was hydrologically connected, that was just something you said and is nowhere there's any evidence that that's the case? Or are you just saying, I don't think it is, or I think it is? I don't understand that. And the other question I have before, and maybe this is for Thomas, but if you can't take water during the forbearance time, does that mean that he would have to, or she would have to have 200,000 gallons of storage in order to make it through the season?
But nobody with the credentials to say that.
All right, to clarify, I am not a licensed hydrologist. I did make an error. For forbearance terms, there typically needs to be water storage for the total amount for forbearance. However, forbearance is required for hydrologic connectivity.
I guess what I'm trying to say is when you say you make an error, I don't know what you're referring to. How did you make it?
If I could step in and perhaps help Cade a little bit here, is that the staff report's really clear that this is a groundwater well that is not hydrologically connected. Those are the facts that we presented on the record. Cade just tried to walk through the process, the decision-making process of how we get there. So earlier in the presentation, he did say that it was a hydrologically connected well. That was the mistake he was referring to. Okay, he should not have said that. I'm sure it's one of those things where if you could ever take words back, those would be words that he would take back right now because it's caused a great amount of confusion. This well, from what we can tell, is not hydrologically connected. Cade has been extremely transparent in terms of what we do to determine whether or not it's likely to be diverting surface water. And based upon the location, based upon the depth, it is highly unlikely that this is diverting surface water, which is the issue. And, you know, in response to Commissioner Bongio's question about getting somebody who is qualified, we do try to consult with geologists, hydrogeologists, hydrologists to get these answers. It is extremely difficult right now to get hydrogeologists, geologists to comment on cannabis applications. You saw earlier that a local firm, PWA, did identify that a well was not hydrologically connected. That's very unusual to be able to have a geologist take that stance. So the staff is put in a situation of doing the best that we can in looking at the well logs, looking at the information that's available, reviewing that information and presenting it. That is all presented correctly in the staff report. Cade did an extremely good job on that. He did misspeak tonight. He apologizes, I apologize. We didn't mean to confuse the commission.
Okay, I was confused as to, where the error was, and now I understand, so thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thomas, I see you have your hand up.
So I'm guilty. I heard that hydrologically connected and I was just like, oh my God. But after seeing the other evidence of the well completion log and hearing where the first depth of water is at, I would retract my concerns that I stated earlier. That's 77 feet. That's pretty well down in the ground. And also the material that the well is drilled in. I'm going to retract my earlier concerns. I apologize.
Thank you, Thomas. Any other thoughts or questions on this one?
Yeah, I reading through attachment 4A, it makes it pretty clear that there is no surface water. So I felt comfortable with it before the connectivity issue came up.
Well, anybody want to make a motion on this one? Let's keep us moving. Nobody?
All right, I'll motion to approve Scrap Acres LLC record number PLN 11722, parcel numbers 316-085-001 in the Redwood Valley area for a conditional use permit for 14,700 square feet of pre-existing cannabis activities.
Okay. Melanie, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thomas, a second. Any discussion on the motion in a second? Seeing none, have a roll call vote, please.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Melanie, for moving that along. Next one is item number 7, John Parample in the Redwood Valley area. This is for the staff report.
Good evening, commissioners.
Welcome back.
All right, can everybody see this here?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. This is for a conditional use permit for John Parample, accessor parcel number 316-084-001 in the Redwood Valley area. Please note that John Parample is also the owner of Scrap Acres. This is a 281-acre parcel zoned timberland production with a land use designation of timberland. Please note that this is the parcel that was just approved. This is a conditional use permit. This conditional use permit seeks 13,850 square feet of existing outdoor cannabis cultivation. Annual water usage is estimated at 10.7 gallons per square foot per year, totaling 148,000 gallons. Power sourcing is not required, though the applicant has a proposal to transition solar for both parcels by the end of 2022 season. Excuse me, by the 2022 season. So both this parcel and the adjacent parcel by 2022. 4 employees with 3 part-time, totaling 7 employees for the 2 parcels. All processing will be taking place via a licensed third party. Here you see the site plan, and then for questioning, because I know that it's going to occur, down here in the bottom right, you see a groundwater well. This is not existing, this is proposed. As water is being sourced from the groundwater well located on 316-085-001, previously discussed. The recommendation of staff is that we find the project consistent with the mitigated negative declaration adopted by the Commercial Medical Marijuana Land Use Ordinance per section 15164 of CEQA guidelines. That they make all required findings for the approval of the conditional use permit, and that the commission adopt the resolution approving the conditional use permit subject to the conditions of approval outlined in the staff report. I'd be happy to take questioning.
All right. Thank you, Cade. Any questions for Cade on this one? Seeing none, I will open this up for public comment. Public comment now, 7454, go ahead.
Hey, I have a problem. I'm in construction, or have been in the past, and it's when you get a comment, and maybe I don't want to misquote John Ford here, but he said it's very unlikely that this is hydrologically connected, and that you can't get licensed people qualified to make that determination because it's related to cannabis. I don't quite understand that, because I don't see any other firm or any other engineering company shying away from this. Or is it just because these people can't make that determination, and the determination is required to be done? So unless you have somebody on your staff that has the equivalent of a wet stamp, your staff should not be making that determination on any of these projects regarding the wells, such as this particular one has a well. You're putting the county at risk if it's determined that it is, and you don't have somebody licensed to go back upon. And I sure wouldn't be doing it. That's just a recommendation as far as that. And it just befuddles me that you can't find someone qualified. And if staff's going to make it, you should have somebody on there qualified. Every other part of engineering, if I'm going to have engineering on a building, that gets a wet stamp on it, and that's why they have those people, and they don't have lay people sitting around without the expertise making those decisions. So that's quite bothersome to me that would be being done by the planning staff without being qualified. Take some opportunity to speak on that.
7108, go ahead.
Hi, I have a question here. It says there's no generator usage on site, and then it says the applicant plans on installing a solar array prior to the 2022 season. So I don't know what you need a solar array if you're not using a generator at this point. And my concern about the previous one, I guess these are connected by the same well, was generators being at locations where there's nobody there in case there is a fire. That didn't really get addressed. Unattended generators running in high fire risk areas during a very high fire risk time. So yeah, there was that. And then of course, how to say that these wells are not hydrologically connected. I was told that ones at the top of the ridges are the worst because that's where the water gathers to fill up the aquifer or something. Anyway, I think you need to get more information and not just assume because it's way at the top and only so deep, it's not going to be affecting. And I think we're going to find out a lot because of this drought and what's going on. So, yeah, you don't, yeah, the no generators, but you're going to have solar later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other public that wishes to speak on this one? Then I'd like the applicant to give them the opportunity to speak before we bring it back to the commission. So if the applicant is available, please address us now. Okay, does the applicant have a consultant that wants to speak? Mario, you're saying? I'm not seeing. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Bongio. My name is Mario Kelson. I'm the supervising environmental health specialist with Division of Environmental Health, Public Health Branch. And I have no opposition to this project. My intent here today is to talk a little bit about wells and with the specificity with this project. And this is not new concept for you as a planning commission, but the county planning mechanism, I want to raise awareness for the general public and the commissioners and the applicant that this is the process. It's an opportunity to have discretionary discussion. And in relation to wells specifically, as environmental health is the premier or the primary permitting agency, it's really important that we explore what the proposal is for a new well. So this project does describe a proposed well on site, and it does show a well on the site plan, and that's valuable. But that's not exhaustive. When the project and when the commission approves and certifies the CEQA document, it certifies the well, but when an applicant comes to environmental health and then there are changes downstream, that a driller may change that location and move it to a place where there's a variance required, a variance to the well ordinance. We're talking about Title 6, Division 3, or the California well standards. And that's what environmental health uses to review a well permit proposal. So what I'm requesting is applicants really take heart this opportunity to disclose any variances that may be required, get with their well driller, and really kind of commit to that site location and hope that it is a water producing location such that we don't have to apply for variances at a later date, because our task is to recognize that well proposals are a project and we need to satisfy CEQA. And our approach would the most efficient way would be to reference the certified CEQA document already. So if there's any variances required, we can hinge off that and have a smooth transition to permit. If there is a variance, then we'll have to do supplemental evaluation, and that can be expensive and costly. Thanks for that opportunity.
I'm going to follow up, ask you a question. Do you feel there's an issue on this one while you're bringing this up? That just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I'm kind of wondering why we're having a discussion about it. So.
Right. So I apologize for that. I engaged with the planners earlier this week. It's a tough week, right before Memorial Day week, and these agendas come out on Friday. And so we lost a day to exchange ideas on Monday. We exchanged ideas on Tuesday and weren't able to precipitate discussion. We could work through some of these concerns, and maybe we could have had staff from environmental health go out if we received an application and do a preliminary evaluation And that's what I'm hoping we can come together in the future when there is a proposed well. So the site plan as it's reflected here, no, I don't see there any concerns. But again, this is not the permit application that is submitted to environmental health.
Okay. Thank you. Thomas, raise your hand.
So this is going to bring up a question of process. There's two processes I've seen with cannabis permitting. One is people are just going and drilling wells while they're in the process of being processed. And then this one is going before the planning commission before a well is even potentially drilled. Should there be a set standard process? And also what is the recourse if an applicant submits a plot plan to environmental health and they approve a well within a water course? So food for thought.
You want to address that, Mario, or?
Yeah, thanks. Those are all valid points, and there's no set in stone way to go about it at this point. What a recent court precedent setting decision called Power versus County of Stanislaus, the informed counties statewide that the well drilling process is a project subject to CEQA. And we need to coordinate as a county and comply with CEQA. So if it's a well permit that's applied for first, then it's environmental health that must make the evaluation on, is there an exemption that the project qualifies for, or is it a discretionary process and then therefore needs an initial study and henceforth other supplemental documents after that. But that is a process discussion that the county is going to have more of.
Director, would you like to?
I'd just like to point out, you may recall that on another project, Rolling Meadows, that the county was accused of piecemealing because the well permits were issued before the actual project was approved. So under strict interpretation of CEQA, there are benefits to having a proposed well and looking at the project as a whole and approving it all at once, where the CEQA documentation then acknowledges everything, the proposed project and the well, all at one time.
I have a question or comment. I've drilled a lot of wells that didn't produce anything, and so I don't think we can assume that this well is going to be successful. So if the project is getting its water from adjoining parcel and there's a possibility in the future that the parcels could be sold to two different people, there should be an easement and a water, legal documents that go along with this project to ensure that in the future there's going to be access to the water from the other site, because there's no guarantee. I've drilled as many as 6 wells on a property and not hit anything, and so I don't think you can assume that that's going to be a successful location. And if we're going to permit it with it getting its water from another parcel, then there needs to be a legal right for that.
Kate, I think you want.
I can respond to that. But prior to bringing this project forward, we did require that the applicant secure an easement for the water being brought from the adjacent parcel.
Thank you. Anybody else have any thoughts on this one? I want to speak on it. I had trouble on the other one. I agree with staff, what they're saying, that it looks like where it sits, the depth, the ground, all that, the little bit that I know about wells, it seems like it's legit. The problem I have is that in any other realm, being in a real world project, they wouldn't be good with that. They'd want somebody to put a stamp on the paper that said, you know, this well will produce this, or this location's the right location, or it's not hydrologically connected. And there wouldn't be any fudge room on it. It's just how it would be. So I'm having a real hard time without having somebody that is qualified, and I'm not taking shots at anybody on staff. That's not what I'm saying here, but none of us are geologists. None of us have that pedigree to say that it is. It needs to be, and I understand that might be difficult to find that person, but at a minimum, an engineer should be saying that it is legit, in my opinion. Some engineers have pretty good geological background, so I would think that that at a minimum would be what would be needed. I'm a little bit torn because we approved the last one unanimously, and now I'm starting to rethink that a little bit after listening to the discussion that's taken place on this one. I really don't have that much problem with this particular project because it makes sense where it's at, but we're gonna have ones that aren't as, I guess, black and white as this one, where it sits on a ridge and that kind of thing. They're gonna be more questionable. And then what are we gonna be saying? Well, we didn't have somebody that was, you know, do it, so we made our best guess, you know? I don't know, where I have my problem is that this wouldn't fly if this was any other kind of a project. It just wouldn't happen. So I'm having a real reservation on not having that as a condition. So, Thomas, you have your, Kay, do you want to comment to that? I saw you put your hand up, so
I don't want to speak out of place, but I don't believe that this conversation would be occurring had I not made an error in my presentation, as the findings in the staff report are consistent with many other projects that have been approved.
I think it would have still been happening. I know I would have asked the question on who's doing it, so.
Absolutely, I'd just like to apologize again.
Taken, and I thought you did a good job. I don't think, and I appreciate you being honest that you know, said it out of place and that you corrected yourself. You did fine on that. There wasn't any, I don't think there's any issue there. But I think there's other issues that have nothing to do with you, with this project. So Thomas, I see you have your hand up, and then Noah behind him.
So I really actually appreciate the way in which this project is coming forward with well not being drilled beforehand. I think I really like it, and it would be nice to see other projects that may come forward to maybe look that same way, because that's quite an interesting CEQA analogy there. If someone goes and punches a well so that way they could grow this season, you know, me personally, for this project at hand, with them being upfront about the other well, and maybe adding a condition that if the new well is deemed hydrologically connected, it will forbear or something like that. If the new well on this partial, I'm comfortable. They have good water use numbers that are actually realistic, not fake, for lack of a better term. I apologize for using that term. And they have like a realistic employee count that's there. It seems like a pretty realistic project to me, and I would be ready, after hearing everyone's concerns, I would be ready to move forward on the project, as long as we added a condition that if the new well was hydrologically connected, they couldn't use it during forbearance times.
Thank you, Thomas. Noah, next.
Yeah, I part of my comment was what Thomas just said, but I will echo it. I also like that this project is attempting to bring us the proposed well rather than the already completed well. I understand that there can be some concerns either way, but I also, I guess I'll just say that just wanted to be clear, I really appreciate your points, Alan, but I just wanted to say that from what I could tell, there was, and Cade kind of spoke to this point in his last remark, there's really nothing in this proposal that should give us more reason to question the hydrological connectivity than any other one. And finally, I don't, just again, in response to your concerns, Alan, about not having somebody to speak to it, I just wanted to point out that we do still have Dan Marr on the line, and I'm not suggesting that we need to bring it back to the public, but he is in fact, while perhaps not a licensed hydrogeologist, somebody who really has a really good reputation and a long track record in this field, working with issues of water sourcing, sustainable, and so forth. So, just wanted to point out that we do have him still on the line.
Okay, I would be willing to open it back up to him one time, and if he wants to comment on it, I don't know. Are you still there, Dan? If you want, go ahead and yeah, go ahead now. Yes.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Great.
Please.
Thanks again for the opportunity, and thanks, Noah, for those words. I would like to point out a few things here. I really appreciate from Mario pointing out the process. And when I got on board with this project, that's what I was very clear about, was that we were going to go through this in the correct process. And so I want to say that the owner has been doing that, and it's been great. The other thing is, this early spring, they have brought in an additional 40,000 gallons of storage. So we have met the proposed storage expansion, and that includes storage that's coming in for fire. And lastly, the site for this cultivation area has been consolidated because it's an environmentally superior site. So it has reduced 9/10 of a mile of road that was going over 8 stream crossings. So the impact to watersheds has been greatly reduced, including another large section of road that will be fully decommissioned in the Minor Creek area, which is a tributary to Redwood Creek. So outside of, expanding water storage, making sure we're going through the process properly, there are many, many other mitigated efforts that are taking place in terms of water conservation, habitat conservation, and the impacts that we all know that roads and cultivation and disturbed spaces have on our environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. All right, bring it back to commission. Anybody else have any more thoughts on this? Go ahead, Thomas.
I'm gonna try to make a motion, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Find that the commission has considered the addendum to the mitigated negative declaration adopted for the commercial medical marijuana land use ordinance pursuant to section 15164 of state CEQA guidelines, make all the required findings for approval of the conditional use permit based on evidence in the staff report, and adopt a resolution approving the proposed Scrap Acres LLC. Am I reading the wrong project?
I think you're on the last one.
Well, I have the right project. But my front things, yeah, I'm on the John, but I went in here and it says Scrap Acres. So it's just a little typo. So I'd assume the John Parample LLC project, subject to the recommended conditions of approval with the added condition of approval of if the new proposed well on this subject parcel is deemed to be hydrologically connected, it will forbear during the forbearance times.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion on that motion?
I have a discussion because we had this whole conversation about who's qualified. So you're then indicating by adding that extra requirement that they would have to get a licensed hydrologist to say that it wasn't connected. And if we go along with that motion, right?
Is that your intent, Thomas?
My intent is to ease any concerns that the chair has about hydrologic connectivity.
But the only way that you would be able to resolve that issue would be to have a hydrologist make that. Because we had this whole conversation about unqualified people. So if that's a requirement, then they're going to have an expert engineer, hydrologist come up with that finding.
Looks like Cliff has his hand up. Maybe he can give some insight here. I just don't want to put undue financial burden on someone.
I have some thoughts on this too, so go ahead, Cliff.
Sure, thank you, Chair Bongio. What I wanted to just kind of provide a little bit of context. If the commission will recall, we had a project roughly 4 or 5 months ago where this became an issue, and we couldn't rule out the potential connectivity of the well. The Planning Commission ended up approving the project with the condition that a hydrogeologist reviews the well information and certifies that it's not connected. So in the months since that project was approved, we have been reaching out to hydrogeologists across the state and have yet to have gotten anybody that is willing to analyze the well. I think we actually did get one estimate, which was about $120,000 from a hydrogeologist. We've had some conversations with some local engineering firms, some local geologists, and the sense that we've got is that this is a really difficult call to make in many cases, because even really experienced professionals have different ideas on what connectivity might be. And so locally, a lot of geologists have now been not wanting to weigh in on this, given the controversy that seems to be developing. So I just want to provide that context in to inform you with any condition that you might want to place on the project.
Alan, you're muted.
Thank
you. Still muted. Now you're good.
I don't know why. So my concerns aren't so much with this project, but we're setting a precedent, and it's an unfair precedent when it comes to, and I've said this, the real world projects. Because I know if there was something they just would, that the response of the county would be tough. You got to find somebody. Okay, it wouldn't be rolling over and saying, well, that's good enough. Or, I mean, if we could agree on, who the people are, there's a lot of people that know about water and know the well drillers are probably the most knowledgeable, probably more knowledgeable than many hydrologists and whatever, have more letters behind their name. But that being said, we require people with all those letters behind their names to approve things, to give their input on projects, to do structural analysis, to do improvements to roads, to all those things. So why should it be any different in this world? I understand that this is a inconvenience for these people. It's a cost inconvenience, but unfortunately that's part of what you get when you live in the state of California. And I'm having a real hard time just moving forward with this as I did on the last one. And I went for it and I can see where things are going to go. And I just think that we're going to have this time and time again. And there's going to be ones that aren't as cut and dry as this. And that's when I think we're going to have a real problem. I think that we can all look at this. We're all smart people. We can go, it's at the top of a ridge. That makes sense that the water's not getting to it. I mean, I think we can do that. But what happens when it's, I don't know, down in Arcata Bottoms again, you know, the next big one that comes and they say they got a well. It needs to be an equal playing field. You know how adamant I've been about that with the stupid road conditions we have and such that go, you know, it's become a game how to work the system. And we got to put our foot down at some point. I mean, I know I'm going to catch hell for having this comment because I've already been told that I'm being too hard on cannabis. So I can't wait for the calls to start coming. But at some point, we need to require it to be the same playing field. I mean, I can remember when we were permitting for reggae or the reggae festival, and we had long discussions about having somebody certify the bridge down there. Oh, it's going to be an inconvenience. It's going to be that. Finally, we did it. We made them have somebody certify the bridge that all those cars were driving across to go to that festival. This is no different. We said that needs to be done for the public. We need to do it here too. You know, how many calls do we get saying that we're not doing the things right? And here we are, we're just trying to sweep another one under nobody wants to get through these things any more than I do. I'll be honest with you. All right. All we had was cannabis on tonight. I mean, it's like, let's get them processed. They're just stacking up out there, but it's got to be the same playing field for everybody. So you're going to see me start taking up this battle because I'm tired of rolling over and watching it all go one way. So with that, I will leave it. And Thomas, you got your hand back up.
So on the soapbox with you for a second, I share all your same road sentiments. Like I'm right there with you. I think roads should be to a better standard. On this, CEQA is something that I am super illiterate and not very intelligent at all when it comes to CEQA. But this project, we have a baseline of existing. So this project, we would be approving a new water well. So to meet CEQA, would we need a hydrologist to prove that that wasn't part of the original baseline study? I'm just the guy that graduated high school and didn't go to college, so I'm just asking a question.
School hard knocks. Would staff like that?
Yeah, so Cade, could you explain what the traditional source of water was on this site?
Yes, the traditional source of water for this site was 3 points of diversion from the original owner. Those have all been removed, and now they have their water source from the permitted groundwater well on APN 316-085-001. Traditionally, with discretionary permits, you are correct, Thomas, that if something is new, for instance, a water source, that an applicant would have to apply for a modification for this new water source. And so in them applying for a modification, they would be subject to a more stringent list of environmental requirements, and they would fall under 2.0. So I'll let Director Ford answer any other additional comment, but yes, to recap, they have removed their 3 points of diversion and are now using a permit.
Thanks, Cade. The only thing I really would add to that, if I could, is that the baseline here was a diversionary water source. What is being talked about here is moving that to a water source that's not diversionary. And the real question is what does it take to demonstrate that? We have tried to take a common sense approach. I hear the desire to have a more formal geological stamp on it. But sometimes it's really important to recognize, and there will be times when it's questionable whether or not it should be considered diversionary or not. But again, people want to take hydrological connectivity to a little bit of a broader sense than what we're really regulating, which is diversion. And if we move it far from a stream, you know, vertically and horizontally removed from the stream, you know, it's really not, it's pretty clear it's not a diversionary source. Whether somebody could argue that it's hydrologically connected, and this is the problem that geologists have, hydrogeologists have, is that it may be hydrologically connected, but how long does that water take to percolate into a subsurface underflow of a surface water? Does it take a year, 2 years, 3 years, 20 years? One of the things that is really clear is that in Humboldt County, no two situations are exactly the same.
Could I ask you a question about this whole non-existent well that's just a dot on a piece of paper at this point? Aren't we approving the permit with the water coming from the other site? Are we approving that he'll be able to drill a well? Isn't there a separate permitting process to drill a well that they'll have to undergo? Or is our approval of this project also approving this drilling of the new well? I'm confused.
No, we are not approving the permit for the well. We're approving the use of a well and the
use of the non-existent well?
The use of a non-existent well that needs to be permitted by environmental health before it can be drilled.
Right, so I understand that. And so in the course of drilling this new well, are we directing then that the owner has to get this engineered hydrologist report that says that it's, you know, it's not a diversionary well? We're approving that, or is that something that'll be a part of their actual well?
No, so that is the kind of the focus of the conversation, is what level of evidence does the commission want to demonstrate that it is not a diversionary source of water?
Okay. So I was thinking all this time that, you know, the well had a separate permitting process and that, you know, it's just something that he's bringing up now that he's going to go and try to do this well in the future. He's going to have to get a permit and they're going to put whatever conditions on that permit. And that right now what we were approving was a permit for him to bring water over from the other side and use that as his primary water source, because the well could not even be a producing well. So it's kind of a big, long conversation about something that may not even pan out. So I was confused that we're permitting this well to be drilled.
I think in fairness, Commissioner O'Neill, we have tried to address both eventualities.
Okay. But they would still have to go get a well permit before they drill the well. Okay. And it's possible that the well may not produce, it may not produce sufficient water. They may still have to take water from the site next door that they own. They've got easements now and rights to that water source for this parcel. So I think we could move forward approving it and not put so much emphasis on this new well, because the new well may not even work out. If the water that they're going to get from the other side is sufficient, then we should approve it.
Thank you, Peggy. Thomas, I see you have your hand up, so go ahead.
I'm just going to throw out a possible amendment to that last condition. Would it make you feel more comfortable if instead of they have to go to get a hydrologist or whatever is fit, the new well, they would have to forbear during the forbearance times of that new well until they showed proof that it's not hydrologically connected? Would that be more appropriate language?
would make me more comfortable.
And it'd be cheaper.
They wouldn't, I mean, basically they could put in more water storage or go get a specialist. So would you be okay with an amendment like that, Mike?
Yes, I would. I was just gonna chime in with that.
Okay, then I'm gonna amend that.
Okay, so why don't you state since it's been a while and we've talked a lot, why don't you just restate just basically what you're adding to it, because everybody can read the.
Take away the condition of the new well, they'd have to provide a hydrological, get rid of that and amend that to, if the new well can be used on the subject parcel during the non-forbearance times. If the applicant chooses to use the well during what's deemed forbearance periods, they shall provide the county planning and building department with sufficient evidence that it's not hydrologically connected to other surface waters. Is that proper?
That sounds good to me, but I wasn't the second though, Mike, and I think Mike agreed with that. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion about that motion and a second? We're running out of time too, so let's see if we can get this done. Noah, I see you have your hand up, so.
Well, I mean, real quick, it's just pointing out that I don't think they're going to be able to get that signature since we've had a discussion about how none of the geologists around here really do. So, you know, we're requiring forbearance, which, you know, maybe should be the policy with wells in general. I guess it just comes down to, I think we're correctly identifying a problem sort of system-wide. I'm not so sure that the additional burden that we're imposing on this owner is warranted by the context of their application and their respective well. That's just my 2 bits, but you know, I'll still vote for it.
Any other discussion? Go ahead, Thomas.
I said sufficient evidence. I didn't say hydrogeologist. I said sufficient evidence, I believe was my language. Is that correct?
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry, then maybe I misunderstood. That was a distinction that's important. So thanks for clarifying that.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Roll call, please.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes.
Melanie McCaver,
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous. That was some interesting discussion. All right, thank you. So we have, that gets us.
Through the chair, could I ask a quick question?
Yes, go ahead.
So in that Supreme Court ruling last year for CEQA as regards to wells, it was decided that it's under county jurisdiction in the well ordinance. And so I'm wondering, are we here in the county looking into maybe making those adjustments? So maybe making that, you know, just redoing it or an analysis. I'm just wondering if the director could.
Actually, since Mr. Kelson's here, has asked him to update the commission on what is being done on that. I know there's a group of people working on it.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. That's a great question. Currently, the Department of Water Resources is revising the California well standards. They're taking public comment on a variety of different aspects related to the well standards. And our county well ordinance is pretty dated. It dates back to '84. So we have much improvement that we can do, but we don't want to preempt the DWR revisions. So we want those to go through first before we spend a lot of county staff time on making adjustments and fine tuning where we need to fine tune. but we have responded to that court case, and we are evaluating every application for a well for compliance with CEQA.
Okay, thank you. And if the public's interested in that, are you accepting comments or?
Well, we're not currently revising any ordinance right now. If people have questions about our process, I'm happy to take our phone calls or emails, and our front counter phone number is 445-6215, or they can email me directly with questions about our process for issuing well permits. It's mcalson@co.humboldt.ca.us.
Thank you. And the timeline for looking at the ordinance from '84, do you have one or?
Yeah, next year we believe, so 2022, we expect DWR to have gotten through the formulation of new California well standards, and following that, we will make changes.
So we shouldn't be having this discussion. This wasn't agendized for tonight. If Melanie, if you'd like to have it agendized though for a future discussion, we could. If you think that little bit of information was enough to suffice, then we don't have to. But we can't go into this much discussion without having public comment and everything.
Yeah, it was in relation to our discussion regarding the last few projects. I think we could maybe ask for an update on it at some future time when we get closer to 2022 for sure. Thank you.
I would like to see something put on the agenda in the future regarding the permitting, continuing to issue permits during a drought. And I don't know if we could have someone, I brought this up and someone else brought it up earlier, and I think it's a legitimate concern that there is a declaration on Humboldt County from the state, and we are continuing to issue permits, and maybe it's not a good time to continue to do that, or at least to hear from an expert or a panel that can advise us on it, because we've had some severe fires in the state, and this is nothing against cannabis, but it is a water intensive industry. And, maybe we need to be putting a pause on some of these permits until we get through the drought. But this is just my opinion, but I'd like to hear some discussion from somebody that knows a little bit more about it than I do.
Yeah, I'd like to hear
If I could respond to that, that is really a decision that gets made at the Board of Supervisors. And the ad hoc committee of the board is putting something together for discussion purposes at the board. And so absent board direction, the discussion, I don't want to sound incorrect here, but discussion at the Planning Commission, if the commission wants to have a discussion about that, express concern to the board, certainly we can agendize something and have that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're already working on something, we're going to be getting something back. We're going to hear something from whatever they come up with, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I would probably suggest that we wait to see what they come up with and then make comments to it.
So that ad hoc committee is working on something right now. Is that what I'm hearing from?
That's what the director said.
And that's good enough for me, as long as, the public understands that we are not, being negligent, that we're aware that there's an issue and that it's being addressed at the Board of Supervisors level, so that they're not coming back going, why are you guys continuing to do this? We want to sue you, or whatever we heard earlier.
And it's important to know that due to those Supreme Court decisions that the old ordinance will be redone for wells.
I just want to say I appreciate, Peggy, you bringing up that issue the way you did, since it was recently at the Board of Supervisors. I think it's very fitting that we should be discussing how that applies to our work here. But yes, since there's the ad hoc subcommittee has something in the works, and Director Ford, do we have any notion of what the timeline for their recommendations may be?
I think the Cannabis Ad Hoc Subcommittee will have something coming to the board in June. I think the ad hoc subcommittee that was separately appointed by the board, which is really not a subcommittee, it was really an ad hoc committee that consists of the OES director, the Deputy Director of Public Works for Environmental Services, the Planning and Building Director, the Ag Commissioner, and the Ag Extension Director, is going to be taking a formal report back on July 13th.
Thank you. We'll be hearing something back eventually. It won't be real soon, but we will get something. So, Thomas, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
All that I was going to say is if we ever do have presentations or reports or whatever, that it shows all sides and aspects of anything, not I saw something at the level that directs us. It kind of, and I felt it was very one-sided, and there's many, when you talk water use, there's lots of water use aspects, not just this realm. So I would like to talk about it all if we talk about any topics, whatever it may be, roads, water, buses, transportation, whatever it is.
I agree, but you won't have that discussion. It'll be what
I'm just bringing up the issue. There's been a declaration, and that's all I'm discussing. I'm not there. There's all kinds of other issues we can discuss, but this is the one that I brought up.
Thank you. Anything else before we call it a night? All right. Seeing nothing else, we will call this meeting adjourned, and we'll see you on the 17th, I believe.
Chair Bongio, do we have to, the Nordic thing, do we have to take action to continue to a date uncertain?
No, I asked the director that, and she said that it was already continued here, so that was all right. We didn't have to.
Then there's nothing.
For 10 days, it was continued. So, thank you for asking. All right, everybody. Good night.
Night.